like you have to see this, then those movies carry on for a few more weeks. But typically after 2 weeks, movies start to die down.
I think some movies now can like find relative success in like the Chinese and Asian market.
Yeah, international. Yeah, if it's a niche.
Like whereas like that wasn't really a thing 15, 20 years ago.
As long as you remove the Taiwan flag, like in Top Gun.
Well, yeah, just make sure it says Gulf of America, motherfucker.
Like I think a movie that like wasn't that bad, but people decided they want to hate it related to the actor involved. Like I don't think Black Adam was a bad movie.
That's an
Americans,
Americans
have far more obsession with actors and actresses than like most other people have with like directors, right? And I feel like a director can genuinely, obviously, is kind of like the buck stops here. Like if a director puts out a bunch of good movies, it's because they're a good director, right? But like there are plenty of actors that like can be mid, but like they're selected well for what they do, and so like the movies can be fine even if they're mid, or even be great movies. Like especially when it comes to like certain like action film actors, like you try and put them in a serious role and it's terrible. But so long as you keep them jacked up on their fucking steroids, in a fucking action film, like they're doing great, and it's a good movie because
Jason Statham's done the same movie like 12 times.
It doesn't matter.
He's always just like some regular guy doing a regular job, and then somebody gets kidnapped, and he's like, "You know who I am. You know what I do. Right. What's the job?"
I gotta tell you that it's better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. You don't know me. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, we get it. All right.
I'm like a working man. I'm a driver.
Some pithy quote that where he's actually a badass and nobody knew. And definitely got to be a lot of chase scenes. That was pretty good. There's got to be some car chase scenes, and like for when you have a Statham movie for some reason.
But yeah, I don't know. He's always doing like some job he shouldn't be doing, and then somebody figures out, Jesus Christ, you know who that is? He's the greatest secret agent in the history of the world, but he just happens to be a mailman right now. That's just a coincidence, and he just wants to be a regular guy. And he's like, I'm retired. I'm not doing this. I don't want to do this anymore. And then like a little girl gets kidnapped. And he says, "What's the job? I'll do." He's done that 15 times. And like that kid is like, "We need you, Jason." Come, like, and he does it, but it works.
Little girl got kidnapped. I guess I gotta find her hot mom and fuck her for no reason, and then go get her. It's like what?
27 people. Like,
yeah. But you know what I'm saying, right? Like the actors, I don't think make or break films as much as Americans.
It used to be a big thing. I think that's I'm about to say, for anyone who has seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I think this is what Tarantino's last movie. Well, there was a concept he was trying to deal with. He was the death of the Hollywood celebrity. Like we used to have a concept where it didn't matter what they were in. People followed celebrities themselves. People followed the big actor and the movie star, and like they just went from thing to thing to thing to thing. Nowadays, I think we are transitioning to a time of directors getting more credit than they used to.
Well, I think also we're transitioning where the celebrities are changing, like what avenue they're in, as well as like self-segregating the demographics that choose different celebrities, right? So like you have young people that like, I mean, like you watch fucking I Show Speed showed up. Like you watch I Show Speed show up to another country, and it's like watching Michael Jackson go to that country. You're like, he has this many people in Brazil that want to go out into the streets and scream and freak the fuck out because he's there. But he's not an actor or anything. He's just some random fucking streamer.
Well, yeah, the streamer is like a new avenue that this is happening. But I think it was just specifically talking about like in the actors. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it wasn't.
No, I think some of the streamers are just as bad.
I'm just stepping back. Well, what I'm seeing is like stepping back. I think what you're seeing is society is kind of, the generations are segregating themselves in terms of what they value. And because of that creates different celebrity. Like if you were to go back to the 1960s, right? Or like, let's say we go back to the time of like the Beatles as a full sensation, right? It doesn't matter what generation you are. You're probably like, you get it. They're a celebrity. right?
Yeah.
Like they're like, it doesn't matter the younger generation, the older generation, they like them for different reasons and different things, but they are a celebrity in America.
Because the media
Whereas
landscape
now-
was much smaller, more defined.
Right, exactly. That's what I mean. It's like the institutions had more, control over who was popular and who wasn't popular. I mean, like fucking look at Led Zeppelin. All they did is steal music and pass it off passably, but they were super famous because they were decent at stealing music.
But budgets were also smaller,
you know what I mean? Like,
so you just kind of got the same people to do everything. Like they nowadays people are. I think they're making so much money, people are taking on less jobs, so it gives people aren't wanting to pay what their fee is. Like they're like of Gen Z, there are in the movies, but there are superstars. There's Zendaya and there's Timothy Chalamet, and for them,
Chalamet. I'm sort of being pedantic, but
it's the love child of Timothy Chalamet and Charlemagne the God, right?
Yeah,
Two of them had a little.
Y'all knew I was
baby,
talking. That wasn't even worth stopping. Let black people say things. But anyways, the skinny white boy and Zendaya are beloved, and Tom Holland for that matter are beloved. I think when that generation thinks over the next 20, 30 years, like they're gonna be like, of course they're the big guys. They've always been the big people. But I don't know.
I see. Every time I see Tom Holland, I know I'm old because I just see it and I'm like, that little guy can dance. Look at that little buddy go.
But I'm pretty sure is he almost 30?
Yeah, I don't think of him as a man. You know what I mean? I just think of him as like a little dancing boy. And then like people, and then I'm like, oh wait a minute, I'm just old. You know, like I'm getting old now.
And Zendaya, well, isn't she just like an overall just like celebrity? Because there's so much. She's in so many things now, like TV, movie, and music.
Yeah, she's a big star. She's like, she's a household name at this point. But the point is that like I guess the factory of creating these is lessened. Some people, lots of people blame Marvel for lots of things, right? But they say that basically the way they franchise their movies, right? Like basically, like people weren't following like other than Iron Man, right? But like for the other franchises, they weren't following it for the actor, right? They just like following the franchise. Like I'm going to see this movie right in this line, rather than like, oh, this is the person starring in it. And so that's the theory. But again, people blame Marvel for fucking everything around the movie industry. And
they're for most of it. They're right.
I don't know. Like
I totally agree. I totally agree. People are like, oh, you see the clip at the end of a Marvel movie, right? And then you see like the hammer, right? Like landing somewhere at the end of it. I think it was like Iron Man 2 or something maybe, or was it the first one? Right. And then you're like, oh shit, there's going to be a Thor movie, right? You're not following because of the actor or anything. You're following the franchise. I'm not going to be like, I watched the second Thor just because it was like Taika Waititi. I was like, all right, I'll fucking watch that. Like, I love that guy.
What is that? That's even worse than
Taika Waititi.
Dan said.
Yeah. Oh man,
how do I know how to say his name? I don't fucking know. I don't care.
Okay. Wow.
But I think the Marvel movies have made it where it's not about like, oh, a great actor makes the character, like I said, outside of Iron Man. Now it's like, oh, if you get to be this character, it justifies you. You become therefore A-list because you've been given like the opportunity to play whatever character in a Marvel movie. Again, I've liked Anthony Mackie before. Anthony Mackie becoming Captain America solidified him as a guaranteed A-list now. Like regardless of what he's done before, he starred in a Marvel movie. He's an A-list now.
I don't know.
Wait, are you? Yeah,
Sorry.
I just want to question. Are you saying like as of now, since he became like as a result of the recent movie, or since he was in Marvel, is like he became he was the Falcon first, and that's because he's A-list?
Well, I'm about to say, I think Falcon being a side character in the movie, I think it was debatable before. I like Anthony Mackie as an actor, but I think it was I think if you ask somebody, is Anthony Mackie definitely an A-tier actor? I think people would argue like maybe B+, like blah blah blah. But I think now it's like undeniable.
I'm not I'm not even sure that I agree with it, because like at least from what I understand, the box office performance of that is like highly underperformed.
Well, it's not about that.
It was
it's
a
about
profitable
legitimacy.
movie. I'm about to say it made like $500 million.
It's about legitimacy, right? Like if you get into like one of those roles, right? I feel like it lends legitimacy to the average person that like, okay, this is an A-list actor. It's not really like there can be plenty of like Oscar bait films, right, that do really well, that are dramas or whatever, and like people will know them as an actor and they might like them as an actor, but it's like you get into like one of these huge franchises and then people are like, oh, that's a famous actor.
Yeah, I'm about to say,
it's funny that you guys say that, because Anthony Mackie specifically was talking about, this was before the Captain America role. He was specifically talking about how, yeah, like movie stars don't exist. He's like, I was thinking of him actually, like picked him out because he had a conversation about this. Like, yeah, like laying out exactly what I laid out, basically, that like we don't like he was grateful like to be like the Falcon and all that, right? But he's like, yeah, we don't follow actors in the same way, right? Like, and I'm not sure if he like necessarily placed himself in the conversation in this way, but basically like the implication was like if he had been an actor like 10-15 years previously, like he had been in the role, then like his trajectory would have been quite different. You know, if he had followed like a similar path of like big movies, his trajectory and positioning would be different because he would be a bigger actor and people presumably will be following it because, oh my gosh, it's an Anthony Mackie movie rather than what it is.
He's probably the most classically trained Marvel actor. Now, I don't. You can argue best. I think that
Anthony Hopkins.
I don't think
classically trained. Like, bro, the guy's done like about 1 million plays. Just
I'm about to say, so was Anthony Mackie. So Anthony Mackie with the Juilliard. He's still been in acting like his entire.
I listen. He's accomplished. I was just saying that if you say most accomplished or most whatever trained, you can't forget there's a bunch of guys like Jeremy Irons and some of these others that are like only in like one movie.
No,
or they play a small role. They're like super classically trained.
And I'm saying in the Marvel.
Right, in Marvel. That's what like they even had like Matt Damon in a one-off. Now I'm not talking about him classically. They have a lot of like cameo guys that are technically in Marvel. Anyway, we're getting sidetracked. Go ahead.
I was about to say, but regardless of dealing with
sidetrack from the sidetrack.
Yes, I'm about to say we're about to start. People are here now. It was a fun little conversation. But I do think that outside, I'm sorry, he's one of the most classically trained, arguably not the best. But yeah, I do think we still have movie stars. I think that a lot of them trend a little bit older, but I mean, if Leonardo DiCaprio's in a movie, people are going to go see Leonardo DiCaprio in the movie. Same with Brad Pitt, same with Denzel Washington,
Tom Cruise.
Yeah, we still have movies. Well, Tom Cruise almost doesn't count because Tom Cruise only does 2 movies now. Like he's like trapped himself in his Mission Impossible series, and
I don't know if he's trapped. I think.
But I mean, obviously, Tom Cruise does a
trapped
movie.
In Mission Impossible. Oh no!
I was about to say obviously, Tom Cruise does a movie. Like, if you're a Scientologist, you probably are legally required, unless you want to lose some of your theta waves in your brain to go see that movie, right?
Will Smith.
That'll drive the 100,000 to the theater.
Oh, but the other thing I was gonna say is when we were talking about legitimizing,
only 10,000. The rest of them don't have the money to go to see him.
True.
I'm about to say Guardians of the Galaxy made Chris Pratt an action star. Chris Pratt was the fat funny guy for years. It's the fat funny side character. He wasn't even a star, and he lost the weight, got the role in Guardians of the Galaxy, and now he's the action hero. Like it completely changed the trajectory of his entire life and career.
Yeah,
I agree. It changed the trajectory, but now I don't know what he's doing. Maybe retired. I don't know, but I think
he does voiceovers for basically everything.
Oh, okay, but I think
he's Mario. He's Garfield.
Well, sure, voice. I think there is potentially an issue of once they're in a Marvel movie, they have a hard time moving past that.
Jurassic World, Passengers.
Yeah, he hasn't had too big.
He's also in a bunch of action movies too, recently. Like they're B level movies, but they're still action movies.
But he's getting paid. I'm about to say they don't got budget for much else, but he's getting checks.
Yeah, it's just like when they hired what's his name, Nick Cage, after he got in that trouble where he did 15 or 20 terrible movies. They paid him $1 million each. He just showed up one day and filmed and kind of thing. Some of them don't pay as good, but it's hey, we got one big star.
Ghost Rider? Yeah.
Well, Nick Cage.
Well,
had
I
a
mean, I don't know if that's an
spending
example of that, but
problem.
Ghost Rider's famously, like Nick Cage famously is like, that's why you see me these like C tier movies all the time.
You know why Nick
randomly.
Cage had to do that because his accountant stole all his money and went to South America.
Yeah.
Well,
It
he
was
also
the
has
whole
a
thing.
spending problem. Like
I think
a
he
pretty
spent
bad
a lot of
spending
his
problem.
money.
He does have.
I think he even acknowledged it. Like even
Yeah.
in the Marvelous whatever the movie, Fantastic Talent or whatever. Like he even kind of acknowledges like yeah he buys random houses, random stuff. Like he didn't think he could run out of money.
I
I mean, it didn't help that his accountant literally took every dime he had and moved to South America. It's interesting, the Tom Cruise thing. People don't realize that he's been in a lot of other stuff than Top Gun and whatever the other fucking movie makes is.
Mission Impossible.
Mission Impossible. Yeah.
Days of Thunder. Like I mean, he's been a
Days of Thunder, Edge of Tomorrow. Edge of Tomorrow is great.
Edge of Tomorrow was good. Actually, it was really good. Yeah.
Vanilla Sky was in, but War of the Worlds was fucking fantastic.
How can you forget Jerry Maguire? That's a whole.
You like War of the Worlds? I did not like War of the Worlds.
You did not like War of the Worlds? What's wrong with you?
I like the old radio, the original, but I just didn't like their interpretation of it. It's not my favorite.
Arrival was a good sci-fi movie, but yeah, I don't think War of the Worlds was that good of a alien invasion.
I like
not the new one, not the newest one at least.
Aaron Eckhart is a vastly underrated action star.
Who?
Really?
I didn't hear the name.
I played the Joker. I
didn't know what your name was. You said
Two-Face. In the Dark Knight.
He plays.
Yeah.
He plays all. He plays like that brooding, normal guy character perfectly.
Yeah, he's a lot
I feel like we have proven that that we were all wrong. That apparently we do focus on actors by not being able to stop talking about Hollywood celebrities and actors.
I just said I watched Severance and then it took off from there.
And everyone else should watch Severance. I don't think I told you about or like tried to harass you into that band, but you should be watching Severance too. In case you haven't done so.
I'm working on it. I'm about to say it's in the list.
So before we get started, I did want to ask something to Lactwood and Scott. So long about your libertarian beliefs. I had we've talked about already how you're against copyright, right? I think it follows the same true for patents, right? Is that not the case?
I think Scott is more.
Patent is just a version of copyright. Yeah.
I mean,
we know you love that. He's a big fan.
Make sure if there's
I'm really so
fan.
Huge. Frankly, nobody's a bigger fan.
I think Scott is like no IP at all. I am skeptical of IP. I don't think it has a philosophical grounding. I just think that for pragmatic reasons, you might be able to justify it in the short term.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. So then maybe this is more to Scott than to Lactwood, but I'd love to hear both of your answers on this. In terms of trademark, so let's just imagine for a moment that Lactoid comes out with an amazing new widget, right? This widget is like tearing up the shelves, right? Even a luxury item. I think that like if I get one of Lactoid's widgets, I'm walking down the street, like I'm gonna get fucked, right? Like it's that good.
Not in the good way.
So,
right.
Yeah. Oh no, yeah, in the good way. No, the good way, right? Like I'm getting ladies, right? It's that amazing. So I go to the store, right? I got like a fistful of hundreds in my hands to buy that product. And I reach for the shelf, right, for the widget. But then right next to it, there is another box that looks just like Lactoids, right? It has the same like wording. It has the the type, the font, and all that, right? It looks exactly like, but it says widget new and improved. Underneath, like at the bottom of the box, it says created by Fabian Industries. Right. But it's like otherwise the same. And I go in my head, I didn't know they had a V2. Okay, well, I guess I'll grab that instead. And so I grab the Fabian version. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Should that be allowed? Is that okay?
So I mean, there's a couple of things that can change the scenario in one direction or the other. Like, so first of all, like caveat emptor, you know what I mean? Like buyer beware. If you're just buying random shit and you don't know what you're buying, like,
especially from Fabian Industries.
Right, exactly, right? Like what does Fabian Industries do? We take products, we reverse engineer them, and then we make them 20% cheaper. Okay, well, when I'm able to make something 20% cheaper, there's a reason I'm able to make it 20% cheaper. And the reason I'm able to make it 20% cheaper is because I have a better manufacturing process. I have better sourced materials,
just worse.
or whatever. Right? When you have copyright, let's say Rolex copyrighted the idea of a watch for 100 years, and only Rolex could make watches. Right? Well, a lot of things would happen. Number one, the price of watches would be fucking insane. So no one except the rich could afford a watch. Number two, the technology in making better watches, like diving watches, or watches that might have a different style or look to them, right? Like whatever it is that you as the customer want, is going to be stunted by the fact that Rolex doesn't have to compete with anybody, because the government is going to come out and say, you're not allowed to sell watches. Only Rolex is allowed to sell watches. And so all I'm saying is, if someone figures out how to build a watch, they ought to be able to build a watch. And that doesn't mean Rolex can't exist. That doesn't mean a company can't exist that makes luxury products for people that want luxury products, simultaneously with another company that makes the same product or a similar product that's cheaper, easier to mass produce, and maybe it doesn't last as long. Maybe you don't get pussy unless you wear the Rolex, right? But you can tell time, and it'd be pretty dope if we could all tell time. And I don't want IP standing in the way of all of us being able to tell time, because you don't have a sundial in the town square to go check on at night.
But we're talking.
You just look over the sun, though, right?
But of course, we're talking about trademark, right? I'm going to give you two scenarios. One, that like the again, the box looks exactly similar to Lactoids, right? Except either it says new and improved widget, right, or it says gadget, but like it's done in a way that makes you think, right? And it has like even a mark. So let's say he has a symbol, right, attached to it, right?
It's like you got some shit from Temu and it's an Adidas with like fucking 7 stripes.
Yeah,
right?
Like, exactly, right.
It's exactly the same, except for that.
And have it, right? It's called gadget rather than widget, right? So both of those situations where you're using the same name but just say new and approved, it says gadget rather than widget. That should be allowed.
So I do think that should be allowed, right? Here's the difference, though, is that Lactoid can come out with packaging that says the original. And if I put out and say original, now I've committed fraud, right? Because I've lied to the customer. Though. Right. Yeah. Well, if it's original and it's got a new name, right? Like again, like I said, there is caveat emptor, right? Like there is a sense that this happens already even with IP laws, right? Go to Dollar General and you're going to find toys and things that look very similar to Disney princess toys, right? They're just a little different. They're like should I make the toys sold at Dollar General illegal? No, like there are products that are licensed to be official products, and if you try and sell the idea that your product is not a different version but is that product exclusively, then you start engaging in fraud, because now you can't tell the difference between the real product and the copy of the product.
An interesting point, Scott, is that I only know about this because my kid is like ridiculously into Legos. A lot of the best Lego kits are actually not made by Lego anymore, because Lego's patent expired on the Lego brick.
Interesting.
And so where they get what Lego decided to do is that they would have it's like the Death Star, but it's made by Lego instead of Lego, right? They got them. They couldn't do anything because the patent ran out on the bricks. But the problem is that they were too good at replicating the packaging, and they violated Disney's copyright.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's not. It doesn't have to get that complicated, right? Like,
but it really can get that. It can be really ridiculous.
No, what I mean is like. What I'm saying is that like without IP laws, right? They're just like you can't commit fraud. That's all I want, right? Like don't commit fraud. But I don't care if a product copies another product and looks very similar and does the same thing. Like I just don't care.
But I think it's rough, like to say. Okay, Lactoid, I'll hear what you got to say.
The main disagreement I have with, and maybe this is not really that big of a disagreement, but I think the small but main disagreement I have with Scott is I think that a trademark is sort of in of itself like the kind of caveat of the original implicitly. And so I think caveat's probably the type of IP that I'm most favorable towards in terms of existing, because the purpose of trademark is not necessarily we're going to hoard this product that nobody else can make it so we can have like exclusive monopoly on it. The purpose of a trademark is we don't want the consumers confused as to who they're buying from. And oftentimes, right, if you have like the Apple logo implies with it, this is the original Apple logo. And there's no reason why you would need, like, you can make computers all you want. I agree. It'd be ridiculous for Apple to say, we own the concept of computer, right? But I think it's totally fine for them to say, no, we have this trademark. This has been commonly understood by the consumer base to mean us. And the only real reason why you're trying to go like for some kind of similar thing is to try to like get people to think that you are us. So then you can like trick them, basically commit fraud. So trademarks I'm cool with. When it comes to patents and copyright, I'm much more skeptical because that's more of like establishing a monopoly on a product as opposed towards just trying to like give the consumers a free choice. I'm not saying that it can't happen, but I'm just more.
We've got to be strict with patents.
When it comes down to the trademark situation, right? Like, there's no reason that. So again, the problem with being an ANCAP as opposed to like damn near every other political philosophy, right, is just because there is like ANCAP just says certain things can't be done. It doesn't actually tell you what you ought to. And so I do agree that there's probably utility to customers not having to constantly sue for fraud and figure out what product is the right product. And so what I would say is that most companies that are major distributors, major stores that have lots of locations and things like that, would it probably engage in some type of contract to avoid those lawsuits, right? There would be insurance companies that are like, okay, we're going to insure you from lawsuits and from like, we're a rights enforcement agency. So like, if someone robs your store, we're going to insure your product, we're going to handle policing, et cetera. Oh, and by the way, if you want to pay a low rate, I don't feel like dealing with all the trademark bullshit fraud lawsuits. So there's this thing here that says that you agree to follow whatever such and such. And then that problem kind of like moves out of the market. If it is something that genuinely costs money, because there's so many fraud lawsuits, the easier way to get rid of that is to just have large distributors, large stores and things of that nature choose to adopt for the ease of making a profit to not engage in that behavior, because that behavior wouldn't ultimately be profitable.
Friend, the easier way would just have a trademark office and say that you can't use this particular trademark. You can make the exact same product, right? As you guys have said previously, you can make the exact same product, but like you can't like basically like engage in fraud. Right, like
no, I agree. I agree. But I agree actually, that the easier solution a lot of times is to just grab the guns of the state and force everybody to believe in your arbitrary rules, right? But like, I'm not evil, so I don't necessarily take the presumably easier solution. Can I make a, right? What I'm saying is that under certain contexts, it might not be more.
Before we get too far off this point, I have to say I find it ironic that Lactoid uses Apple suing over computers when that's exactly what they did to IB.
There's plenty of criticisms that you can make about Apple about all sorts of shit. I'm just saying they were used as an example.
But it was just so funny.
Before, I want to clarify something real quick with Scott. Because Scott,
okay, then we'll go to Bam and Corey.
Scott, the one question I have for you though is, I understand where you're coming from, but oftentimes these fraudulently trademarked goods are shipped in from impossible to find, very difficult to sue places. And so, like, let's say the government like uncovers a cargo ship full of fake shit, right? Do they really have to wait until like everybody starts suing some random unnamed company in China before they just say, "Look, we're not going to let this in the market"?
Well, I mean, like, your example requires a state to exist.
It does. It does.
But the state to be not following IP. And like, I feel like IP is probably one of the last things that goes before the state kind of goes anyways. So like, I'm not sure it's really a real world example per se, but like I'll still engage with the hypothetical, right? Which is that like, so long as the state is enforcing borders and enforcing trade, which is likely the last thing to do, and like Temu is shipping in a bunch of fraudulent shit, right? Like it becomes the
They would never do
state's
that.
prerogative or authority to engage.
Well, Fabian, I don't know why you're even saying that, because
some level of economic protection against those like blatant crimes.
I don't know why you even saying that, Fabian. When half the panel here doesn't even believe in protecting the borders and the free trade. I'm just saying.
Oh fuck! I brought up the magic words and summoned Gibbs. I went into my mirror 3 times and said immigration, immigration, immigration. And all of a sudden, like a coke fairy wrapped in a swirl of cocaine, he comes into the bathroom to cut the lights on and bring his strobe.
I need to get some like flour
about immigration.
I need to get some flour like LeBron and just come on these things and be like,
I actually.
Yeah,
I would actually go further than I think most people here. Like people who have an issue with product patents. I just don't want the rest of the world to look like the tech industry, where it's essentially become this space where no other company can exist. Like even if it's even become like the new model, like the companies have accepted. They're like, oh, okay, their goal is to make some type of technological advancement, not to exist as a company, but just to be purchased by a larger company, who's just gonna buy their product once, take it apart, and feel like, oh, okay, I can do this. I can buy this in a larger bulk than they can, so I can make this product a little bit cheaper than they can. So I'm just gonna like destroy them. Like I said, I think that there's value in saying like, oh, okay, I've come up with some intellectual property, like some valuable product, and I want it doesn't have to be in perpetuity, like for a million years, but I want some period of like exclusive rights to it where I can actually make a little bit of money off of my creation versus someone else just being able
first
to
market.
take it.
That's such a good point. I literally wrote that down to jump in later with it. It's a good point.
It's the classic argument for IP. It's just fuck the whole world so that the inventor can make more money.
I mean,
Corey?
Yeah, well, this is where Scott and I think are like largely perfectly aligned. I'm curious, Prime, so like, are you in favor of? I'm curious. Like, it seems like you're against some form of intellectual property, but like trademark, that's where you lean towards, or like just to uphold that for the sake of.
I'm waiting for an argument other than like state laws.
What in the world
that would lead me against it? Like, because like Electra, I think laid out perfectly. Like, it's like, I mean, it's absolutely the path to fraud. Like, there'd be no reason.
It's the benefit of the consumer.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is how the consumer can easily tell without like having to do it. Like, I agree with Scott. Like, customer beware. Absolutely, he's correct on that. But like, there's a level of reasonableness that should be within the market. That like, hey, if I see these logos, right, that I've always associated literally for decades with this product, I can reasonably assume that's the product that I'm looking for.
Well, so
I think there's utility in what you're saying. So I think the market would just do that
what I wanted to say, just FYI, when you pointed to me. So I guess springboard off of Lactoid's example of like, Apple has the monopoly on that specific logo. But like, yeah, for me, I think another company, I understand, or I'm sympathetic to like they want their logo associated with their products. But I do think another company should be able to like, if I want to have that logo on like a candy bar, like have at it. Like why should it just be restricted? Like they have a monopoly on this graphic and like nobody else can use it. And it's like a very simple graphic where I can just change it a little bit. I'll add an extra whatever leaf to the apple. And then like, yes, that should be able to be repurposed for a candy bar or whatever. Or no one, or rather at that point, I'm okay with saying the consumer's at fault. If like,
wait, that's how it works though. Just to be clear, like how it works is like the question as to the validity of trademarks has to do with the likelihood of confusion by the customer. So like, for example, UPS tried to trademark the color brown, and there was like a whole, like there was like a bunch of like uproar from this, but it was to trademark the color brown as it regards package delivery services.
Well, yeah,
but that's not a joke. I mean, wait,
please. I just want to engage with Lactoid since you responded to me.
I was just saying, Prime was laughing at that. Like I was like, they have a legitimate argument.
Then I'm curious because like I believe so if it's to avoid confusion, like should it have never occurred that the WWF was like never to be confused with the World Wildlife Fund and the World Wrestling Federation? Like but that happened.
Acronyms are difficult. And look, there's plenty of lawsuits that happen about this, and I think if two organizations using different names try to like
Showed
file
up
for
to a
trademark.
WWF event, and I was expecting some pandas. And
wait, did this actually happen? Did this actually happen?
Yeah, no, that did happen.
Because that could potentially happen to you. I would expect that.
Oh no.
You seem like the kind of person that would go to a World Wildlife Fund.
I would, but I would know what I would not be expecting Hulk Hogan to walk down.
Sure. Look, you can make the argument, hey, this is bullshit. I think they should change their name. You can make that argument. You could be their lawyer. Like, I'll potentially be open to it.
Music is really intense for a Zoom.
I just think that like for an Apple logo, like if you put an apple like on a candy bar, the likelihood of confusion between a candy bar and a laptop is nil.
But if I create, Apple would not allow that to fly, and they would probably win.
They would probably lose that.
Selling fucking
I don't know that they would.
I think they probably would. You can find examples of companies trying to like go overboard of their trademark, and if there's little to no risk of customer confusion, that's one of the things you have to try to show in order to like enforce a trademark against another company.
Well, I mean, like, you're kind of talking about the same process, all three of us here, right? Which is that like there is ambiguity within, and that's why we have common law, right? Like that's why we have courts on certain things, like you know what I mean? Like civil courts is like, well, we got to figure this out in court because we're not actually sure, right? If it was really blatantly obvious, someone's lawyers probably would have settled out of court. They would have been like, okay, I'm gonna lose this case, I'm gonna settle, right? So I don't think there's actually that much difference between the three of us in too many regards, because I think what we're trying to say is, what is the line between fraud and a society where nobody can tell what product is made by what company, and how do we figure that out? And I think the appropriate answer is, you have to have some court system in place that has kind of, or some contractual system that is able to find the most efficient means of settling this dispute. My only opinion is that the state fails at doing so because it's a monopoly and because it has so much corporate influence. But I still think the market itself would have to answer that question, just like any society would have to answer that question.
I think the Temple had something to say.
Yeah, I got a question. Well, I wanted to. This was like a question following up on what you said. I'll call you Bam, I guess. Yeah. About the patents, I think it makes sense to have patents because I wrote that we have to protect the incentive of developing novel tech because of the research and development costs. But this is also like kind of timely, right? Like we're thinking about like the iPhone or like stuff like this. We're living in a time where like we're having radical change. Like your phone is like aged out over like 4 years. So one, I wanted to ask you guys if you guys thought that it'll ever like slow down. Are we just like in perpetual like acceleration, or will it slow down where it's like I've had this phone for 40 years and it works? Because like we get to that point where like the software updates are able to, the hardware, I guess it's more of a hardware thing. But then the second question was kind of earlier what you guys were getting at with Lactoid, but on the copyright issue, copyright I feel like made sense, but with the age of AI, I'm wondering if artists are going to run into trouble because when they want to like strike creators' content because they're using music, it's going to probably drive a lot of creators to just go use AI art. And it might even drive like restaurants to just start putting like AI generated music up in their ceiling instead of having to like pay out for some like artists or whatever. However, they end up like this copyright program works in the future, however they're trying to sell music. Because there's already a lot of theft of it, right? So it's like in the age of AI, it might be like there's no way you can get people to pay for your music. Because like if they're paying for your music for background music, they're just going to have this AI generated. It's going to be cheaper and there's no copyright issues. There's no question.
It's inevitable.
Yeah. I can't
like is copyright dead?
I think we're like
copyright might be dead.
I think we're like 97% there as far as like our phone technology. Like there was a time where like the technology was really transformative, but I'm saying, just hear what I'm saying, or you disagree? There was a time
I was
where
saying, all right, my bad.
No, I wasn't disagreeing with you. I'm talking to the black man. Don't worry. But like I think the tech, like there was a time whenever the iPhone first came out that we were doing really transformative things with our phone technology, with the smartphone technology, and even a few years past that, where we're getting really big dramatic updates and changes. I think at this point we're at as our phones currently exist. I think that the changes we're getting year over year is like, oh, this battery lasts 25 minutes longer. True. Or, oh, this processor is a little bit faster. That doesn't mean that we're never going to get a new thing, but I'm saying the next thing is going to be something.
Samsung improved their corporate security, so Apple.
You think we'll move on from phones to like the goggles or anything like that in the
future? That's what Zuckerberg is betting on, but I don't believe it. I don't think.
I think it'd be so much
want to wear
better.
glasses full time.
Dude, I think
it's brain chips. That's next.
If it's implemented correctly, I think it would be way more freeing, and we look back at this time and be like, bro, remember when we carried around bricks instead of just being able to like see it on the walls behind us?
I mean, people aren't using laptops as like actual like portable travel computers anymore. Most people like have some form of tablet.
I don't know about that.
No, I'm saying people own laptops, but I don't think they're buying laptops for the purpose of like, oh, this is my portable computer. Like people just don't buy desktops.
I absolutely own multiple laptops for travel computers.
You buy laptops and use laptops as a portable.
No, you're a nerd. You have to listen to. I'm talking about by and large. Most people who own computers own one computer.
Normal people.
That's true.
He's talking about normal people.
Yeah, I own both, but yeah,
you can get a laptop for like $80.
I issue laptops to my salespeople
with an HDMI cord. That's what.
No, like all my salespeople get a company issue laptop, like for travel purposes. Like, I don't like.
Yeah, the company issue, but they're not buying it. Like, they're buying laptops. Their laptops are their only computer. I'm saying they have a screen at home that they connect it to for their Zoom meetings, but like they don't have like, oh, okay, I have a laptop and I have a desktop and I have the tablet and
that's different. That's different. I wasn't saying that. I was saying separately. People get laptops for travel. People have desktops. Like people are buying desktops. I'm not saying they're buying both. To be very clear. I'm not sure, Pet Tub, you can still hear me or not? I don't know. Can you? Oh, you can still hear me? Okay. Well, you can. I'll answer your question while you're doing whatever. My response is like your thing on the cell phones. Like the companies have literally no incentive to create a cell phone that you don't have to upgrade, right? That you don't have to buy again. And you'll perpetually just upgrade through software. Not unless there's a way, right, a more profitable way to monetize the software updates. Like right now, they like them to break. Right now, Apple is fighting against the right to fix your own cell phone, right? Yeah,
True.
Like this, like fighting against the right to repair.
Well, they also brick them on purpose.
Yeah, but also like 3 to 4 years
to do updates to brick your phone.
The 3 to 4 years is definitely like. I mean, like this, we're getting like the next wave of updates is going to be like when everyone's phone has like AI. I think people are gonna. I think honestly, I'm starting to realize like I feel like this is gonna be way bigger than we think. This AI thing. At first I was like, oh, they're just saying AI slapping on everything. I think it really is going to be huge.
That much bigger. I think that people are like, wow, AI is going to like triple. I think we're like 75% there on.
Dude, I think it's going to replace bigger than the internet. The effect of the internet
going to be for now until the next big thing.
It's going to replace all our jobs.
Hold on, to Pituple's point, and like,
dude.
I know Pituple's
starts replacing massive jobs.
Well, to Pituple's point, right? Like, it's so efficient, right? Like I see Pituple, he does a lot of stuff with Grok, and I have another streamer friend. His name is Your New Dad. He's a comedian on Comedy Central, but he's been like, "Hey, Gibbs, you got to get a ChatGPT for XYZ." And so I am not. I want to be clear. I'm not artistically inclined. I'm a very confident man. I'm good at a lot of things. Like, say I wanted to paint minis. I could probably paint 1,000 hours and get decent enough that it's not terrible, right? But it's not something I'm naturally good at, and it's not something I'll ever be Picasso at, right? Like, but when it comes to like making graphics, I could go on there and make a semi-professional looking thumbnail on ChatGPT in less than 20 minutes and start uploading. I can do graphics for them. I mean, I have been like, this is just like with rudimentary knowledge, and I'm learning all sorts of different things. And it's like, how many people that I just cut out there? I cut out all the people that I used to pay to make emotes. Now I can just make emotes myself. I've cut out all the little small mom pop graphics people that do this all the time. You know, I've cut out having to go. Like, yeah, I mean, it's sad. It's sad, but it's basically the same as when like with the whale industry disappeared, because it's gonna overnight, unless you're like the top of your field, this is gone. Like, it's gonna be gone, and like you're gonna have to do something, and it's gonna be the people that have been able to adapt to using this as a tool that are gonna get this initial boon from it.
I more or less agree with the AI point. I didn't really respond to that. What I was going to respond to is like why we haven't gotten, this is more to Bam, I guess, why we haven't gotten, and we'll get to the actual topic very soon. I promise. I apologize, Scott. But like, like I think part of the reason why we aren't getting massive like innovation, one is because at some point in time, like this happens with any new piece of technology, new form factors. Like at first there's a burst of innovation, right? Like the graph goes like this, like straight up, and then it like begins to slowly slide down. So like we're simply in like the more stable phase, and that's fine.
We
right?
push the tech as far as it'll go. Like something new will have to come out.
but beyond that, right? I think we have well, two things. One, I think the technology is so complicated that like it's a very high barrier of entry for others to get into this space, right? Or even if it's going to create something new and a whiz bang, right? It's still going to take a lot of engineering that is beyond most like small like groups to be able to create. So there's that. But two, there's all even beyond that though. There's been a concentration and a oligarchization of the field. Samsung is not trying. Samsung is not like Samsung is doing the bare minimum with its updates.
Bro.
It's kind of Apple too. Apple is doing the same thing previously. They're trying a little bit harder now. And there's a few
Samsung doesn't really need to update that much though.
Bro, it folds.
Samsung doesn't need to because it has a hold of the market, right? Because we have there's such big players that the big players do what big players do, and then eventually decide we're not going to put money into R&D. So they're just not doing not keeping up with the rest. So it's really
especially when Huawei is banned in certain large markets.
Yeah, we took out one of their competitors here in the States. So
I understand what you're saying, and like I understand like the capitalist market of it, but I do believe that by and large, like there's only so much you can put in the R&D. Like there's certain things that you figure out, like, oh, okay, we're actually at the sweet point in this. Like I think people a few years ago, like in the 2015s or whatever, they thought for a while like, oh, we're gonna keep increasing the number of megapixels in cameras, and we're going to add more cameras, and we're going to keep doing that. And then they realized like actually people aren't using all these other cameras as much as we thought they were. Like you could push, like you could say that like, oh, they just don't want to make more, but they just realize like people
R&D has dividends, but you don't know what those dividends are until you actually do the research and development. Right? Like you can't say
R&D has dividends. That's not an obvious thing. You can put $1 billion in.
Of course it does. Yeah.
You can put $1 billion and have zero return on investment. Like
there's a possibility, yes, that you could put $1 billion into research, right? Hiring like the best talent and then like literally get nothing out of it. Yeah, sure, there's a possibility, but the tendency over like decades, right, over this entire digital revolution is that when you put money into it, you will get some level of returns. Like again, I agree that like at this point in time, right, we're in a stable phase with like the form factor that we are in, right, and with smartphones, in which you won't have like mostly like large spikes in innovation, right? We're still waiting for that next big thing, but yes, you get dividends out of that, right?
But I'm saying
that
what I'm saying is like phone screens are actually excellent now. In 2010,
and they've gotten better. They've literally gotten better.
Just listen what I'm saying. And phone screens are excellent now. In 2009, 2010, 2011, you do anything, you drop your phone once, your screen is shattered. You have to
glass.
Yes, but so we've hit a point now where our phone screens are actually generally pretty successful. Putting another $1 billion into phone screen technology
might make them indestructible. Like I don't like. What are you talking about? Of course, it can be better.
Again, you can make anything better. Humans can be better. But I'm saying, like there has to be a business perspective of it. That there's a customer satisfaction. We've satisfied.
Coming up with new possibilities for TV technology, right? In terms of like the screen technology has been changing.
Ali's here, Prime.
Sorry, what?
Sorry,
yeah. There's like a whole bunch of shit. So that's actually improved because we put that research and development. So it's crazy to say like otherwise. Actually, it's a huge.
I'm about to say there's only one way you could like you're thinking the retarded argument that like there can't be any minuscule increase in or improvement in technology, or I'm saying that like we've hit a point of like general satisfaction with what we're doing. Like I don't need we could make cars that go to 2,000 miles per hour, but once you hit like 250 miles per hour, you realize that like we make cars adequately fast.
But why? Okay, hon, we can understand that we have some limits and like practical limits, and that like, hey, we like making cars faster actually is not helpful. I agree with that, but that doesn't mean that
we should make them faster. That's what you're
arguing. No, I wouldn't argue that. No, because I was just about to not argue that. I was about to argue the opposite. I was going to say, hey, when you put that research and development, hey, where other places can we make improvements, right? Safety. There's all kinds of safety improvements we can still make. There is interactability with the car. How can, because people want to have their entertainment, they want to have like their car to be like a roving computer. How can we do that while like making sure the driver doesn't crash, right? There is
I understand you can point to different things, but I'm saying focusing on the speed thing. I'm saying that
I'm the thing that I've already said that that we pointless.
I'm saying it's not about speed itself. I'm speaking to the practicality of. I'm saying because you're like the thing I was arguing is there's a threshold.
You're always eating.
Like on any individual thing you can
try
speak
to bulk
to,
for the summer.
There's a threshold you can hit where like yes we could do this more, but it like we've hit a place of customer satisfaction. We seem to like people want faster cars. You can't say people don't. People do, but for the general consumer, we figured out how to generally make cars fast enough.
I understand
we could continue making cars faster, but we're generally satisfied. So we're like we've hit the peak of what we want people to do.
We've said a lot. All right, we've gone back and forth. So maybe I can like get us to the topic by just kind of settling this for a second, right?
He's gonna read
the capitalist.
The
capitalist.
That's what you're known for.
Listen. Right? In order to make products and services, you need at least 2 of 3 categories: land, labor, capital. How does a capitalist make money? The capitalist makes money by providing capital. Okay? They don't provide land always. Sometimes they do. And they certainly don't provide the labor, right? It's usually the worker that is providing the labor. So they provide capital. Okay. And so that's because we have a time preference. We want a thing now, not a thing in the future. So the capitalists, in order to make profit, because we're not in an evenly rotating economy, right? The capitalist makes the most profit by predicting what will be wanted in the future. Okay. Like it's not about what the market wants now. Anybody can figure out what the market wants now and then start, building up whatever is necessary to make it. Samsung is an example of a company that has their fingers in like a billion different shit in tech, right? Like Samsung is known in Korea. Like basically everyone works at Samsung. Samsung does everything, right? They're really well known for like fucking their hard drives and their RAM and all kinds of other shit in tech and TVs and all of this. Okay. And so when stagnation in a specific product occurs, it's a terrible idea to put research and development into that product, because Samsung's job is to figure out what will be the next thing. And so they're going to slow down their own improvement in research into cell phones and put it into other areas that are still growing rapidly until that new thing comes out, or until they get some idea that a new thing is going to come out. And that's when they put a bunch of research in it. I'm not trying to shit on you, Prime, but Bam is 100% correct here that like Samsung knows that the development process of the phone is slowing down. And so because those changes are slow, it's going to be less and less value for them to put money into research into that product, and more valuable for them to put research into TVs or into other things. And they can learn some things about phones from researching processors or memory and things like that. And then that can kind of laterally make the phones better. But they're waiting for the new product, the new thing that's going to have higher returns on
we're going to do things which are against your interest and the interest
to put a bunch of money into a product when a new thing comes out, so that they can get ahead of everybody. Everybody's already caught up on phones.
So we won't move on until I finish this. No, I disagree here. One, I agree and I disagree. One, the situation you laid out in which, hey, we're waiting for the next big thing. We're seeing like maybe returns on investment being decreasing in this area, and so maybe like we shift research dollars to somewhere else. That in itself makes sense, right? So I'm not fighting you on that. But the idea that it's not worth it to be making at least nominal improvements to keep up with the rest of the market in terms of phones, right? Like that, I disagree with. I don't think
I'm saying that, or Bam is saying that.
Yeah, no.
I don't think either of us are making that claim.
Hold on. Because that's literally where I started this conversation about, right? So that's what I was talking about. So I'm going to finish my point here. So like the idea that you wouldn't put money into, and that requires research and development. Those are R&D dollars. Putting that to have the nominal improvements that at least keeps up with the market. and the way that they're not doing now. The reason why they can do that is because of their market position, because they're part of the oligopoly, because at least especially
because of IP.
Android.
You finally agree with
I already agreed about that. Okay, let's move on.
What we need here is we need Tim Pool to come in and
in any case,
throw
they have
Prime back under the bus where he belongs.
That keeps them secure,
Prime is,
so they're not worried about losing that ground when they are not putting out new products that are comparable. That's what's happening there.
Like
and that's
who are they? They're not keeping up with their market.
Research and development is pointless here. No, it's not pointless. And then like Bam specifically said, well, you could have a situation where you put $1 billion into a product, right, and get nothing for it. Like, come on, man. Like,
what I'm saying is that, like, I'm saying it's not necessarily true that just because you do R&D, you're gonna get that return of it. But I'm saying that, like, I'll go back to the phone screen. Phone screens are pretty good right now. If someone said that, like, but they're not bulletproof, like, you could argue, yeah, they're not bulletproof, and it's like, shouldn't we keep going until they're wait a minute. Let me just say what I'm saying.
Okay,
they're not hard enough to be they're not hard enough to be bulletproof yet. It's like, yeah, they're not hard enough to be bulletproof, but people are really satisfied with the hardness of phones. That doesn't mean like that the person is saying that like they're not actually indestructible. I think as a company you can decide that like, oh, okay, I don't think that they have to be indestructible. I think that we just have to satisfy our consumer base to realize that like, oh, okay, yes, we can continue to make nominal increases in this market. We can make the bulletproof cell phone screen, but I don't find that to be super valuable.
Oh yeah, I know. Hold on, but you keep making this like weird. You're forcing it down. There's like weird dichotomy. Is that what I'm looking for here? I'm not sure. But like you're setting up a situation where like, oh hey, we've on this specific aspect of this specific product, right? We've reached a point where there'll be decreasing dividends, decreasing results, returns, right? Returns on investment, and I have already acknowledged that. Yes,
I actually think that might be a better debate than what I'm going to be doing tonight.
Right? It could be that there's not much.
It's going to be another hour before this shit fires off.
Putting more money,
and we're going to. In the meantime, we're going to be
right. This one,
we're going to be subjected to
right? Like we're playing a fucking RPG, right? Like you're getting close to like level 99, right? On your stats here, like the next few points, it doesn't fucking matter, right? Maybe put your points somewhere else. So, like talking about screens, yes, you can invest in those screens because you can make them brighter, you can make them more responsive, right? Like now, before it wasn't the case where you could like use your thumbprint on like the glass itself and then like scan that. That's like a new innovation. That's the thing that happened through R&D. Like that's what happened. So I wouldn't say like, yes, like put all your money in making it tougher, right? Gorilla Glass, maybe they've reached like, you know, like optimal hardness for their glasses. They haven't, but let's say they did, right? There are other ways, maybe make it more flexible, right? Hard but still flexible, all kinds of ways. But
sure, but you're like the thing is why I don't disagree with what you're saying, because you're saying, okay, don't put your R&D into that thing, moving on to something else.
I like
that's
the same product.
I really like
it doesn't matter.
You guys are
Regardless,
saying very similar shit. But it's like you guys are agreeing 98% of the way, and I think you both kind of have this idea.
It's really weird how these two dudes are just
right.
No, like, I understand.
Like, the argument. The argument is simply this, right? It's like Samsung has like a million different things they could research, and phones haven't made giant improvements. So they're going, where's the best bang for our buck? That's our job, a return on investment for shareholders. Okay, and right now it's not in phone development. It's just not. Like
I don't
think
Samsung's
that they
behind
could
in
put money
either.
Samsung's not behind at all. They're fucking leading the field in a whole bunch of other fields too.
Well, so Samsung knows that there are better things for them to put their money into that they can then utilize in their phones, so that they're not specifically looking too much to put money into phone development because they make processors.
Okay, so
I make a lot of hard drives, NVMe drives, fucking memory, like a lot of those things.
I'm just real quick here. I actually like work with Samsung directly, like regularly, and not for like for their electronics. They do a lot of construction. They're like a massive construction company, and so The thing about Samsung is they're like diversified, and sometimes they do the cheap copy kind of thing, right? Every big company does, but a lot of times, they hire people that are heads of the fields and all these different things. So it is like on the cutting edge. But like as they develop stuff for all of these different stuff, as they develop, things just get cheaper. Like if you go to Walmart today, they have a 70-inch TV for $300. Like. Bro, like if I got a 70-inch TV, it's like $600. I'm lying, but like it's cheap as fuck. And so you go, and the point is, but like 3 years ago, a 70-inch TV would be like 6-8K, it'd be like outrageous, and now it's whatever. And then as stuff improves in different categories, like what's that deep seek AI? Like we thought, we couldn't make stuff without whatever, and then the Chinese invented AI, not using NVIDIA's processor. Like you never know where something's gonna come out of left field. I think a lot of this is all Henry. Can we talk about that other topic now?
Okay, sure. We can do that. I've already won, so perfect time to stop.
I went to Amazon. There actually is a 70-inch available for $350.
Hey, see, I wasn't lying. It was just Amazon, not Walmart.
What's the resolution? Is it like a 1-bit resolution?
It's
it exists. Just like the mothership for drones exists, this exists.
It depends. Is it like an LED or OLED? Like that's
what
LED.
You stop. All right, we were ready to go into the topic. And
I thought my movie was good enough to switch.
Yeah. Okay. So let's. Yeah. Sure. We'll get started. I just want to point out that I think it's interesting that I set up a situation in which Scott was going to, parasitically feed off of Lactoid's hard work, right? And all of a sudden we got a difference of opinion on IP. I don't know. It's interesting there. But
Lactoid's a socialist, don't forget.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It makes sense, right? But okay, so we can get started now. Thanks all for being here. Thanks for the spirited conversation, everyone. That was fantastic, I think. And I didn't think we would go that far with trademark, but as always, this group impresses me, right? We always have a really great talks, and I don't know where it's going to take us. All right, so hi all. This is Reverie Roundtable, which we have Mondays 8 p.m. Eastern. You have a fantastic group of people here, returning friends and new friends. Really excited to have you all. If you enjoyed the conversation that we just had, right, the preamble, which wasn't intended to go as long as it did, but I had to prove I was right, and so mission accomplished. But if you enjoyed that, consider supporting the channel by subs to the channel, gifting bits or gifting subs, right, or resubbing if you're out there. If you got a resub, we're using that here and get ad-free viewing in our emotes, right? And keep this channel up and running so we can have these things and do this more often. But we do need your support, so consider doing that. And if you especially are on YouTube, I haven't been checking yet. I tend to check now, but super chats are a thing that you can provide us with. So yeah, if you hit us with a super chat, I'll read your super chat. I am waiting for my computer, stalling for it to get to the proper screen. But I don't expect that you had given a super chat now because it almost never happens at the start. Except of course, I'm not fucking looking. That's when you all want to give me $50 fucking dollars. But
stop looking.
Let's see.
Stop looking.
Super chat.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Good point then. Oh my God.
Schrodinger's super chat.
It
there we go.
Is. Thank you, Sean, for gifting one. Give the sub and then membership. And then how long ago was this? Oh, this was only 12 minutes ago. All right, I'll take that. AI is most successful in topics which don't require guarantees of performance. Machine learning doesn't train on truth; it trains on probability. That doesn't require guarantees and performance. Interesting. I'd like to hear a bit more exactly what you mean by that, but I want to turn that over my mind. That don't require guarantees of performance. Could you give me an example of that? You don't have to super chat it. You can just put it in, right? Throw it in, because I don't know exactly what you mean. What sectors don't require a guarantee in performance, but machine learning doesn't train on truth; it trains on probability. That is absolutely the case. Thank you for the $5 Canadian. When Sean, you're always helping out. Sorry, go ahead.
I love when super chats accidentally admit that empiricism isn't a valid means to truth.
Okay, You're great.
Yes, true. Indeed.
True.
You have over everything else, but yeah, it's not perfect.
Yeah. But yeah, Sean, like, let me know what areas are you talking about? Actually, I'm not quite sure, but it sounds interesting. So, but thank you again, Sean, for being kind. And the timing, of course, is impeccable with the super chats. All right. Let's get started. I'm going to, in fact, I'm just going to read the topic off, and then you guys can do your intro and opening at the same time. So, the topic for today, the topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI policies, has been the subject of hot debate in recent years. So much so that eliminating them in government was a campaign pledge by the current Republican president. As framed by conservatives, part of the issue with DEI policies is that they distort the hiring and firing process. This can result in underqualified individuals being hired just because they fall into a protected category. So, along those lines, calling someone a quote unquote DEI hire is seen as an insult. But there have been many on the left that have pushed back on this framing and claim that DEI simply redresses past and present discrimination by allowing candidates who might be looked over to have a shot. Where do you fall in this debate? Do DEI policies undermine the ability for employers to hire the best candidates? Is President Trump making the government and big business run more efficiently by encouraging the purging of these practices? Or are we simply reinstating the centuries-old status quo of ignoring qualified individuals because of their minority status? And shout out to my man Bam over here for coming up with this topic. Much appreciated. The government is doing like a purge of DEI, and a quite stupid one, basically, like it's Control F. And they are finding things that fall on a list, and they're getting rid of them, like Jackie Robinson. Jackie Robinson had like a page on the Defense Department. Jackie Robinson, the famous baseball player, was also a veteran. And then his page gets eliminated because of DEI reasons. And there's like a whole list of examples like this. A very, very long list and growing. But in any case, DEI is more than just that, of course, right? And specifically, we're talking about hiring and firing. I want to know what you all think about, like, like, is there even a problem that needs to be redressed? Maybe you don't think there is, right? Maybe things are okay, right? And that without any of these policies or anything to replace those policies, that things will work out. The meritocracy is indeed working, and that it will produce the best candidates, right? And so there's no need to worry, right? As long as you are a competent person within a minority group, that you will succeed. Are those your thoughts, or maybe not, right? So we'll toss that around. Start with our friend Lactoid. Yeah, I can do introductions, opening.
Yeah, so I'm Lactoid. I'm a Gibbs adjacent streamer that believes that having sex with corpses is moral. And I often defend Gibbs even when he isn't around, saying that he has the highest social IQ of anybody that I know and that he pulls tens left to right. That's really who I am. So it's nice to meet you guys. We're here to talk about the subject of DEI. And generally speaking, the biggest concern and issue that I have when people talk about DEI or really any kind of non-meritorious hiring programs generally is that there seems to be this concept of qualified. And this is the single thing that I hate the most. There is no such thing as qualified. There's simply more qualified or less qualified. It is a spectrum. It is not a binary. There is not a you are not qualified, and then all of a sudden you pass this imaginary line, and all of a sudden you're just as good as everybody else on this other side of the line. That's not how it works.
Depends on the job. Sorry, this openings.
No, it's okay. I would say it really does not depend on the job, just to preeminently retort. But with any kind of job, there's various different metrics that would be that you have to do better at, do worse at, absolutely affect overall job performance. When it comes to DEI, it's explicitly a non-meritorious a way of hiring people, or a way of distributing resources, or a way of organizing society. It's DEI, obviously short for diversity, equity, inclusion. Now, that's been changing because DEI now has a negative social connotation. And so they are doing the same thing. A lot of people in these positions of power are doing the same thing. They're simply changing the wording, right? But they're accomplishing the exact same goal. And they have the same underlying goal, which is they have this perception of some kind of historical wrongdoing, and and the way they want to solve it is through selective advantages given to people based on race, gender, ethnicity, disability, etc. This is very much a thing, and this is very much alive. I posted some links in the group chat, for example, that I would like to talk about. I mean, one of the ways that the classic way this is being used is affirmative action, which, although there's a recent Supreme Court case that limits it, it still absolutely happens. One of the ways that they will do this is through diversity statements, in which if your statement doesn't indicate sufficient diversity or commitment to diversity, they're going to axe you before they even take a look at your merits. Another way they do it is through specific grants that the government provides exclusively to people based on their
thanks,
race
Mr.
or
Boulay.
gender.
Really appreciate the
And I provided sources for all
$5
that.
American.
And all that has an absolute
Supporting the Magnum PI
effect on people
So who's
in their real
TC?
lives today.
I
Now,
don't have a TC.
do I think
Yeah,
it's a
need
good
to
thing
get
to get
one.
rid of it? I do. I think that people, when it comes to work, when it comes to things along those lines, they should be treated based on their merit, not based on the color of their skin or their gender or anything along these lines. Or if you would ask me the same thing about, certain educational institutions will have legacy where they give advantages to people based on who their parents are. I think that's also a problem. You're not going to catch me saying that any of that's good. Ideally, we would like to see the most meritorious people in the best positions for them. And socially, I hope to push this forward.
Okay, thanks so much. And I didn't get this, I didn't say it before, but we're very happy to have you back, Lactoid. We've missed your friend. So it's fantastic. And we finally have both our libertarians back on screen, right? Like we haven't had you both here in like a month and a half at least, maybe even 2 months. So it's nice to have you both here. Libertarians should come in pairs, right? I think we all know this.
We needed that diversity.
With diversity. But yeah, thank you so much. And Scott, I'm glad to have you here as well.
Yeah, so no surprise here. I'm going to pretty much agree with everything Lactoid said, but I want to dig a little bit deeper. I think the biggest problem with combating and understanding DEI is the latter, understanding what DEI is. Conservatives, for the most part, they see things that they don't like. They see little elements of it, right? They hear a news article about, some government, HR meeting somewhere where they teach black people that being on time is actually a construct of white supremacy. And they're like, what the fuck is going on? And they don't actually understand like any of what is occurring, but they do know one thing, which is that having positive, discrimination for one race in certain categories means necessarily negative discrimination for those that aren't a part of that, which means that there is a less meritocratic system, that there is, issues that are resolved around that, and that it is, by nature of being positively anti-racist against certain groups, it cannot be anything but racist in practice against the other groups. And, they're fighting against that. So what is DEI, right? We hear the terms diversity, equity, inclusion. All right, so I'm going to give you a good definition of DEI, which is the installation of neo-Marxist political officers in institutions with the goal of establishing socialism through critical theory praxis. That's what a DEI is. Okay, it's not about diversity, it's not about inclusion, it is about equity, right? It is about all of those things, but when you actually understand what that means and how it works, that's what it is. So I'm going to repeat the definition. The installation of neo-Marxist political officers in institutions with the goal of establishing socialism through critical theory praxis. That's what it means. So let's talk about the elephant in the room first, which is equity. This is the easy one to understand. What is equity? Equity is a rebranding of socialism through the Frankfurt School and through academia to mean redistributing resources or, as conservatives often say, equality of outcome, right? You see, like we were given a video to research and all he says the entire time, all of his arguments are about disparate impact disparate outcomes. It has nothing to do with merit. It has nothing to do with qualifications. All of the arguments are this number doesn't match the demographic population, therefore racism, and we must fix it. So, when you want a better understanding of it, the best understanding would probably be social equity definition by George Fredrickson. Now, George Fredrickson was the founder and editor-in-chief of the Journal of Public Affairs, Administration Research and Theory. He was the founder of the Journal of Public Affairs Education. He was the president for over 2 decades of the American Society of Public Administration. So when we're talking about public administration, how companies run, how the government is run, this is your guy, right? And he says that equality is when citizens A plus B are equal. Equity is when shares are adjusted so citizens A plus B are made equal. Make no bones about it. The E in DEI, equity, is about redistributing wealth, redistributing jobs, redistributing things when the outcomes aren't perfect. It is a rebranding of communism. So what about diversity, right? Conservatives like the idea of diversity, right? Like, of course, we want people from different backgrounds, people of different ideas, diversity of thought, all of those things, right? But see, diversity is actually the exact opposite definition. It's anti-diversity. It requires singular thought. You saw Lactoid brought up these things like diversity statements. Why does a diversity statement matter versus just putting, I'm Black, I'm Indian, I'm from this tribe, I'm this? And the reason is because what diversity actually means is that you are using your voice of your identity, that you are instantiated within your identity as a critical theorist. You are critically conscious. So what diversity actually means is putting more people in positions of authority and power to force an ideology of critical theory and critical race theory on people, and that we don't just want Black people, we want Black people that have their voice within their identity, that parrot the things that we want them to parrot. Lastly, we have inclusivity. Right? So this is, of the trifecta. Now you'll hear from other people, there's actually an A, it's access. People like, Sam Cedar and a bunch of other people have started running with this idea. It's just them running away from the concept of DEI. Also, usually you're going to see that as belonging is an acronym there, or more often than not, you're going to see IDEA, not DEIA, but inclusivity, diversity, equity, access, because it makes a nice little pretty acronym, IDEA. So what is inclusivity, right? Well, what inclusivity means is that not only must you have a place that isn't antagonistic, you must positively and consistently affirm people's identity. Okay, it is not about having an office that isn't sexist or racist against people. Rather, it is about having an office that is constantly praising people for their gender, praising people for their identity, praising people for being, inclusive in these domains. If you don't believe me, you can look at McKinsey and Company's definition. The degree to which an individual feels that their authentic selves are welcomed at work, enabling them to contribute in a meaningful and deliberate manners. Or we can look at the International Labor Organization's definition, the experience people have in the workplace and the extent to which they feel valued for who they are, the skills and experience they bring, and the extent to which they have a strong sense of, here's that key word again, belonging with others at work. Belonging originates with Herbert Marcuse. Okay, it is not a concept that you simply are there and you are equal. It is that you are positively affirmed. This is kind of the basis. We'll get into all the details.
And point number 2 coming up.
Point number 2.
Look, don't bring me on to talk about DEI and think I'm not going to be verbose. Like, this is my fucking bread and butter.
All right. Oh, Scott, see, we didn't get the full effect last week. You were quiet.
Yeah, I gave 6 words. All right, last week. All right, I was stockpiling.
Yeah, gotta rebalance the humors. Okay. All right. So much.
I'll be quiet tonight, Scott. Just you can tap my time.
Oh, great.
We're gonna trade.
That's Corey. I'm glad to have you here, friend.
Yeah, thank you. Always appreciated to be invited and never take it for granted. And I also, I'm happy to be reunited with my fellow Canadian friend, Lactoid. Missed the Canadian representation. But you can find me on Twitch, Corey Campbell 84, Twitter, X, YouTube, Instagram is Corey Campbell, and Substack is Corey Campbell. Second piece coming out soon. But yes, so I'll try to keep it brief, where DEI is a complex topic. I to some extent, I am sympathetic to all of the claims that have been made so far, where probably at the university level, maybe not so good, since, for some people, it might, let's say, have some detrimental negative effects on them questioning themselves or whether they actually belong in an academic setting. But overall, when it comes to DEI, at least based off of the empirics that I've seen, there appear to be some actual substantial benefits to DEI policies in terms of innovation, maybe some worker satisfaction, and maybe some productivity gains. There is some mixed evidence in some domains, but I think on the whole, the empirics hold out that DEI policies are largely overall a net positive. And I think that's also reflected in the fact that despite the fact that I think companies like Meta and Google caved to the new administration, and I think have abolished their DEI policies, but Apple has retained theirs. But they might be trying to pander to their demographic that buys their products. Who knows? But I think there's a reasons why they are retaining them, and they voted to retain them because I think we'll hopefully see that companies clue into the fact that some targeted DEI policies are positive and lead to actual gains that are tangible and beneficial to the company. And lastly, I also am in favor of largely, again, targeted DEI policies to make up for some historical injustices that I view. And I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you so much. Let's go to our friend Grid. Nice to see you again. Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, good to see you. Good to see you. I will not be as long as Scott, I promise. I will
be longer.
And it actually helps.
Please, man. Please.
Actually helps because he said a lot of the things that I was going to say. I'm going to fill in some blanks that he, I'm sure, is going to fill in later. I'll just go ahead and preempt that. First of all, DEI is really nothing more than policies that actually reflect or attempt to further the affirmative action doctrine, which was law, which was struck down and has been gone for, I think, roughly 10 or 15 years. And affirmative action was proven to have failed. And we, instead of learning from those lessons, we've now doubled down on it. And instead of making it law, we're making it policy. And it's a group of, it's a network of policies and frameworks that in some manner give corporations this social credit, social EQ score, all of this nonsense that has no bearings on whether a company can do business properly or not. I liken it to the fact that if you had a guy standing in front of you who literally had the cure for cancer in his hand and was going to make you $100 million a day, but he was black, would you not hire him? There's literally no country on the planet that's not going to hire that guy. Like literally. People who are capitalists do not care about skin color. Matter of fact, we don't care about race, creed, or religion at all, because we're all about making money, and this is what's important. I have to say that Scott also missed out on that DEI actually creates hostility by forcing people who would never associate with each other to associate with each other. And what's more, by taking people who are of varying experience and qualifications and forcing them to be equal, you create resentment on one side and apathy on the other. Resentment because this guy knows he's more qualified, apathy because this guy knows he doesn't have to do shit to get the job. And both of those things are very negative in the workforce. Very negative. And I don't think that you can point to anything positive that DEI has done, with the possible exception. I'm sure somebody's going to mention that there was this manufactured idea that a couple of companies actually made more money while they were using DEI practices, but that was a financial trick, which we can explain later. I'm not going to go into all of it now because, again, I don't want to be Scott. I will just, we'll get into it. But I really don't, I actually don't see any point to DEI at all. I think it's a net negative, and we just need to allow companies and individuals to hire, fire, and employ who they want. That's it.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Bam. And again, thank you, Bam, for coming up with the topic.
Absolutely. The unfortunate reality is the only correct way to have this conversation, which I honestly don't even want to have tonight, is some mutual agreement on what it actually is, because I guarantee you we've had 4 people speak so far, and they say they're like, oh yeah, we think similar things. They have 4 entirely different practical makeups in their head of what they believe is happening in the workplace. And I'm about to say, yeah, I'm gonna be the 5th, and I'm gonna have actually an entirely different makeup, just from people who I've spoken to who have been a part of these departments and what they look like in different workplaces. All of these, all these departments do, at least in the people I spoke to, is make workplaces as questions. Whenever you're going through your hiring process, it makes no requirements or demands of who gets a job, of how people are hired, but it makes you at least ask the question of, hey, are we interviewing a diverse group of people, and if not, why? And the thing is that the why to that could make sense. Are construction sites interviewing a lot of women for construction jobs? No, but why? Because women tend to not go into those fields. That's an actual answer to that question. What we don't seem to do is we look back on history and we think they're like, oh, okay, I think Nick Wright was speaking to a lot of truth of like, okay, there was a good old days when everything went off of meritocracy. Like Jackie Robinson wasn't the first black person who was good enough to play play baseball in the major leagues. He wasn't, but but through someone seeking, and it wasn't the capitalists didn't decide to go get all the good players because all they're interested in is winning and success. There seems to be other things that they actually factored in. They did have other values, even the capitalists. And those people in that industry and every other decided it was in their interest to prevent women and black people from entering fields. Whenever we started asking these questions, we've gotten surprising answers. We for decades and centuries, really, for most of human history, thought that like there wasn't value to having women get educations. Then we actually figured out in our modern society that, oh wow, women are actually better at getting university educations than the men are. It seems to be something that they're actually prone to doing. I think something else that was said about like making the argument, like if you want to argue that like through the thousands of senators that the United States had, that only 14 black people have ever been good enough to have that job, then you can make that argument. But the reality is there probably are social, societal, and workplace enforcers that have been blocking and pushing people out of the workforce and out of opportunities that they would have otherwise been good in. I'm almost done. I feel like I feel rushed, but after everybody else speaking, I feel like I'm finally get my point out. We for the longest time didn't think that black people in the NFL, for example, we didn't think black people were smart enough to be head coaches. We implemented the Rooney Rule in the NFL in 2003. Within 5 years, we actually had two black coaches win Super Bowls. So the Rooney Rule is essentially a form of DEI. It didn't say that you had to hire any specific person, but it just says as a part of the interviewing process, one person should be a minority. It just says that like, hey, just talk to them. For by and large, black people still aren't getting many head coaching jobs in the NFL, but it's just saying they're like, hey, in a league that's 60% black, there's a lot of black former players that have a desire to coach. Making sure at least one of the people you have a conversation with be some type of minority, and then they're realizing, wow, actually these people are pretty qualified. I wonder why I wasn't interviewing them before, and it's not even saying that like there's some outwardly hatred or like intentional racism behind it. There may have been just a social paradigm that like a social paradigm of how things have always been to make them think that like, oh, okay, these aren't the type of people that I'm supposed to interview. These aren't the way that things have always went in the past. Like, and yeah, I think that we're realizing that, yeah, people are capable of a lot more than what the status quo and how things used to be showed us. That's it.
Okay. It's always fun when people like wind down.
I'm trying to get that last word.
And then they rev back up.
Yeah, right. Oh, yeah, that's even better. But okay. All right, thanks so much. No, like Grit is the master of like winding down very slowly, and eventually I'll stop, but who knows when. Okay, anyway, let's go to Admiral Gibbs.
Yeah, DEI and diversity policies are baby back bullshit. It's a bamboozle. It's a fleece. That's what it is. Let me tell you. First of all, we do know that they get you get benefits from the government for promoting diversity, equity, and inclusion. DEI, particularly through tax credits. And guess what? Targeted funding programs for small businesses and underrepresented groups. You know, we call that open corruption, because that's what they're doing. They're sitting here setting up little piggy pens where they can sit here and wallow around in their DEI benefit money from the whatever, and then they hire people for bullshit jobs that fuck up the whole market value of stuff just to put them in there, and these people aren't qualified to do jack shit. We see the quality of the work. It's terrible. It's been merit-based. And honestly, here's my thing. I got to be honest. We're at, what is this, 2025? All right. I'm sorry that life's not fair. Some people get a better cut of life than others. Guess what? I am the son of an illegal immigrant and adopted. You know, I came from poor, like real poor. And if I can do it, and a lot of y'all think I'm a dumbass. So if I can do it, then yeah, I'm a DI. Like a lot of you think I'm a dumbass. If I can do it successful as I've been in life, coming from nothing, then there's no excuse. And being as stupid as I am, allegedly, there's no reason why y'all can't do it. And so when I see this and y'all go, oh, we need these DI hires, I'm just sorry. Cry me a river. I'd go get my violin behind me, but y'all already know the joke. It's just, I don't care. I just don't care anymore. I'm tired of pretending I'm caring. I think most Americans know that it's a fleece. It's just like USAID. It was a fleece. Just like this. That's why they're afraid to investigate and cut all these programs, because just like in the mob, whenever we go and investigate these things, whenever you start getting close to the money, they start throwing up their arms and screaming and hollering and trying to fight back. And guess what? We found the money, and now, we're bitching. Now we're talking about the ethics of DEI programs. Well, you know what? If you really are a minority and you really do come from nothing, like I do, guess what? You don't want to be the token DEI hire. You want to know for a fact I got hired on my merits. I'm not some baby back bitch that needed you to come give me a little handout because, oh, Lord and Lord, God made my life harder. Mama wasn't there. Daddy wasn't there. I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck. I'm sorry that life sucks. It sucks for everybody. Guess what? Pull your what's the expression? Pull your shit up by your bootstraps. I don't even have to care if you pull your shit by your bootstraps. Wallow in fucking sin. Wallow in failure, or get good. Stop getting me to pay for it with my goddamn tax dollars. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of paying for these people that think that, we're gonna need it for whatever. But whatever. I'm just done. I can keep going, but we've already had 6,000 hours of openings, so I won't go another 20 minutes.
John 3:16. What?
Gibbs was his own DI hire.
Oh, that's goddamn right, bro.
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Gibbs never disappoints. The next person, very excited, brand new to this program, Reverie, Pentuple, cool dude, hung out with them. He's an awesome guy, actually a really fun time. Wrong about everything, also a terrible gambler. But
hey, I gave you that horse. Well, I guess you chose it because of what I said.
Yeah. We were horse betting, and he didn't want to bet on a horse because it sounded woke.
It's Determined Blue.
I bet on the horse and then I won.
Nice.
Go woke, go broke.
Go woke, make money. All right. Well, I'll just start with this. I won't take the Jackie Robinson slander lightly. He did that. They weren't just going to take any black. He was that guy, and he knew the assignment. There really was no other guy that was going to do this. And it's not just a guarantee that if Jackie didn't do it, some other black guy was going to do it. Jackie made a lot of decisions during his career and did a lot of things for his career just on the baseball field that absolutely had an impact. If he hadn't done that, it wasn't just handed to him as, here, be the black guy, Togi. He was that guy. So I just want to throw that out there as a kind of funny retort.
I'm not,
by the way. I'm not super serious trying to come heated. I actually don't really have that strong of an open. I'm kind of getting tired of winning. I didn't think this would ever happen, but I think it is starting to happen. Some of these topics, I'm just kind of we're winning, I'll lend an ear to what you guys want to say. But I just, as far as DEI, my question to the people who support it would just be, do you think that DEI is something that we're going to need perpetually? And what, if not, what do we need before you would accept that DEI is no longer necessary? And if it's always going to be necessary, is that kind of an admission that we can't have a multiracial society? Is the best form of human governance not a multiracial society? Because if we need DEI forever to account for these differences, perhaps this isn't the best form of human governance. And maybe that's the argument that it sounds like is being made if you argue that DEI is needed forever. So is it needed forever? Or if not, what do we need before we get there? I think personally, there's enough economic mobility in the US and there's so many opportunities that it's really kind of a moot point at this point. I really don't know that there's anyone in the US we can find that has no access to any opportunities, especially as things advance. I mean, like we've almost connected the whole globe. I mean, I think it's a very different world than it was even just 40, 50 years ago. So I just don't think it's necessary. I think we've already moved on to the point where we could let it go. But I just wanted to hear those responses from the pro DEI when we get to the full thing, as just sort of thoughts that could maybe convince me on the topic. But there's my open.
See, there's a slide, right? Slowly
slide.
Now, point number 2.
Sliding in a home plate, just like Jackie Robinson stealing home base, baby.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much. And last but not least, we have our friend Ali. Last but the latest, actually, is what we should say. Our friend Ali is here. Happy to have you, friend.
Thanks for having me, man. Yeah, merit means fuck all. I keep hearing merit qualifications. It's like, listen, man. Well, in a world where nepotism exists, in a world where people can and will lie about their credentials, will lie on their resume, can get away with that. In a world where interviews are essentially vibes, you can have the merit, you can have the credentials, you just suck at the interview and you don't get the job. Merit doesn't really mean shit. No one necessarily gets hired only on their merit. And if every single company only hired the people with the best merit, we'd never have workers because, we'd be too busy trying to steal workers from other people because of their merit and their credentials and so on and so forth. DEI probably just would have happened naturally anyways. But, considering the fact that there were some, I guess you could say racists who ran companies in their days, right? You gave these people something to fight against, man. Stop giving people something to fight against. You won't hear this crap because once again, it would have happened naturally. You would have just been hiring people for the vibe and the culture of the company, because sometimes you don't hire based on merit. You hire those who fit the culture, right? You have a Spanish-speaking community. You're probably going to hire more Spanish-speaking people or people of that community rather than the person with the best merit, because sometimes the culture is a little bit more important than the merit. Helps the business move along. Thank you.
Okay. Over to the panel.
Fuck you, Ali. I hate you.
Yeah. If anyone,
that's how you do an opening, by the way. Oh my God, Jesus fuck!
If anyone doesn't
Jesus Christ,
answer,
thank you, Ali.
Right, like the Pentuple had a really great question, I think. But the theorists have kind of already answered your question, Pentuple. The problem is that most lefties don't want to actually quote the radical theorists that have set up DEI, right? So when you look at Horkheimer, Adorno, Habermas, Derek Bell.
What if you just don't know any of these people? It's not that I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to name them or quote them. I don't know any of them.
Exactly what a Marxist
know their quotes or know their quotes.
So right. So when I brought up Derek Bell and his idea of interest convergence, right? Briefly, right. So when you're looking at DEI policies and you're looking at, look at anytime you see the word justice, right?
We're gonna do philosophy.
You're trying to understand what does justice means. What you have to understand is that there's a difference between what the theorists will call punitive accountability and justice. So the answer to the question of when does this end is given by Derek Bell as well as Horkheimer and Habermas, right? They will all say that the justice is achieved when all power in society and in all hierarchical structures has been redistributed so that there is a convergence of things, right? So there will no longer be any whiteness or any white power or any white people in positions of power in any degree larger than the other people. So you need massive pushes so that there is no power imbalances. There is no more oppression. And then justice will spontaneously erupt, because once everyone in society believes in critical theory, once everyone is woke or they've been purged out and they have been re-educated to believe in neo-Marxist philosophy, then justice will just occur and we will no longer need all of these programs. So the end goal is we must institute communism. We must re-educate everyone that doesn't believe in critical theory and wokeness and doesn't believe that like white supremacy is the greatest evil and things of that nature. And we must get rid of all of capitalism, and we must get rid of markets and everything. And we must all be living in the communist utopia. Then we will no longer need DEI programs, because justice will just exist from the critical consciousness. That's the answer. And everyone on the left is going to be like, you're crazy. But if you read the fucking people that write and advise all of the critical theory and describe what critical theory is and why they need DEI and make these fucking programs and advise with them, that's their answer.
See, that was a merit argument, and then now we're going to be here to discuss vibes.
I want to clarify. So I'm just curious. Like, I'm not going to argue with the definition. Okay, I'm sure that is the philosophy, but you think that Apple will only end their program when that happens?
No,
once communism and Marxism rules the land.
No, because for the same reason that Marxism failed and people like the Rockefellers funded critical theory in the Frankfurt School, you would go, why would a capitalist fund anti-capitalist movements? It's because they know that critical theory was less of a threat to them than was classical Marxism. These people are not woke. It's rainbow capitalism. Okay, they know that if they make people happy and they give them their breadcrumbs, they can get better ESG scores. They can get bank loans that have lower interest rates. They can get handouts from the government, and then they can beat out all the smaller companies that don't have all of these connections and don't have all of these programs and don't have all this NGO money. So it's a game of tug of war against the anti-capitalist Marxists that are trying to infiltrate all of these institutions and put forward praxis, versus the companies themselves and the wealthy people on boards that just want to make money. And right now, 2 years ago, the best way to make money was to go full-blown DEI. And with Trump in power, some companies are like, actually, the better bet is to get rid of this shit because it costs me money.
Oh, well then why did they vote to retain it then?
It depends upon the company.
Okay,
right?
but
like different companies are making different evaluations.
Okay, sure. But you would agree. But you would agree. You would agree that Apple's not necessarily looking for that outcome that you outlined.
No, Apple's not looking for that outcome.
Okay, that's all I want to establish.
None of these CEOs are looking for an outcome of getting rid of their power.
It's them, Corey. It's them, Corey.
So Apple, when you say Apple is not looking for, like, I'm sure that the shareholders of Apple are primarily concerned with just the shares going up. But the consumer base of Apple, I think, is disproportionately concerned about those kind of things, right? Who is the general consumer base?
They might be pandering to the demographic.
I think pandering is absolutely a major part of this. I think, for example, when you see sort of the culture begin to shift the other way, you have brands that have a customer base that is less in line with this sort of like left-wing vision, like Harley Davidson, for example, just drop their DEI initiatives, right? Because it no longer is suited to their business needs. Which I think is kind of funny, by the way, for people who are like,
it doesn't work for every company.
Stands for this. Well, I understand it doesn't work for every company.
Like Ben and Jerry's is fine.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And in the same way, you're going to have like, your local vegan hemp farm that sells, fucking fresh kelp on the weekends. Their customer, they're probably going to have to be like ultra liberal. They're going to have all the trans flags, in March. They're going to have all the BLM.
They're going them beside the kale.
DEI is capitalism, if you really think about it. Pander to your customers.
In some ways it is. I think it is in some ways pandering to a customer base, and there's a market incentive to do so. That's fine, but it's because in this case, like the market that they're pandering to are communists, like by and large.
As long as their money is if their money is capitalist, who cares if they're communists?
We don't have to do this like philosophical argument. Hold on.
These are publicly traded companies.
Hold on.
Publicly traded companies, right?
I'm going to say hold on again.
It's not Apple making these decisions exclusively. Okay, it's
equity.
It's equity managers that own like 20-30% of the shares that have power in voting shares, right? Like you're talking about BlackRock, you're talking about Vanguard, you're talking about ARK, you're talking about Stable Street. You're talking about oh fuck, what's the
Name
the,
three
the
more.
one that goes super?
No, don't name any more. Hold on.
Right, like you're talking about equity managers that have like 10, 20, 30% of their company. Okay, and so it's like it's not so much that it depends upon what hedge fund companies and equity managers have stock in certain companies, right? And it comes down to an evaluation of whether or not they're worried that if they don't push certain things that these people might gobble up stock to then push those things, or that they might drop them. Like it's a lot more complicated than just Apple believes this.
Let's go.
Well, I mean, pushing down a stock.
Bam.
Hold on. Yeah. So I don't want this conversation. Two things and I guess I can't control it. I don't always get what I want in life. But there's two ways this conversation tends to go. We tend to go to like this philosophy conversation where we speak on like the principles we hold in this ideal world that doesn't map onto any of the like history and experience of the world that we live in, or we go into like about to say a lot of lefties will do this idea of like corporations are money machines that calculate most money thing go up. Like I think that business owners and people and executives and people on teams also have their own values and things that they genuinely want to be seen and implemented in their company. Obviously, it doesn't mean that like they're willing to do this to some major detriment of themselves. But I'm saying that like Google, for example, I don't think that Google. I think that like the people at Google that make money, I think they also enjoy their employee base being somewhat diverse. I think it's just something. I think it's a value system. Yeah, I think we'll have cultural reasons mapped into it too. I just don't want this to become. I just don't think this all to. I'm not again. I don't want to go to the philosophy thing. The thing I'm going.
Yeah,
to
I know you want to avoid the philosophy because I'll
yes,
kick your
because
ass
I know.
I
just don't. I don't like it. It's boring.
Right?
No,
like
I got a question. No, let me have my point.
You're running.
I'm not getting ran over. I'm not getting ran over right now. Let me finish my point.
Yeah, chicken.
Chicken. That's
racist. All right, that's not very inclusive of you.
Okay.
To just yell chicken at the black guy, that's racist. It's a microaggression.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Calling him a bitch is better.
Hey. Okay. So we're gonna let Bam.
Yeah, this is just regular aggression.
We're stop it. Knock it
off.
Exactly. We're gonna go to Bam. We're going to Corey. We're going to Pen Temple. I believe his hands up. Ali. Lactoid. I'm going to jump in, right? Because I got a bunch to say at you people. And then, okay, Gibbs.
Yeah. Finishing up again, like I can agree with everyone's idea of this world, like because Pen Temple kind of brought up this question, like this idea of this world where, like, isn't content of the character? Isn't don't we just want the most qualified people? Sure, in a vacuum that sounds great, but it doesn't. It seems like we live in a world where people do have other value sets. When people hire based off of just a lot of hiring practices, just because I've been in the hiring space.
Vibes.
Yeah, it's a lot of vibe. It's just like, okay, this guy kind of reminds me of me. He's from a neighborhood similar to mine, like, or this person is someone I'm used to dealing with. Like, it's not factually like, let me look at your resume and map down by the metric of a percentage.
Are you saying you violated the Equal Opportunity Act?
That was a horrible joke. I understand.
That's fucking a serious question. You're saying that you passed over other candidates because you like the vibe of this guy?
That's how
even if there were more.
That's how hiring works, man. Do you fit in here? Do you fit in with the company? Do you fit in with the culture? Do you fit in with the company?
Well,
even
it's how it works.
It's part of hiring.
Again,
that's it's not. He didn't say based on race. He said grew up where I grew up. I see myself with it. He didn't say race. You guys insinuated race in that. I mean, he literally said he sees himself where he grew up in the same neighborhood or it's the same vibe. He didn't say race. You guys insinuated race. So keep going, Bam.
Yeah, this is how hiring actually works in the United States.
Yeah, I've hired a lot of people and fired them too.
Damn, nice cutoff, bro.
You're so great, brother. I'm telling you. But so when we know that there's this human element to this process, it's like I said, I think it's valuable to be able to ask questions about like, okay, are we actually looking to do what's good for the country as a whole? Obviously, you have your business interests, but downstream from them, you can have larger like overall interest in the country itself, and not having like certain demographics of people like perpetually in the most impoverished positions I think that like hiring practices that seek to what's the word, relieve those conditions,
Redress?
not in say redress those conditions. It doesn't have to be the number one priority, but I'm saying it can be a secondary thing. It can also be something like I don't think there's a beneficial world where we never hire Muslims in the United States. Like I don't think that would be good for the United States.
Well,
as a
can
whole.
the DEI go too far? I guess.
Of course it
Like,
can.
can you violate DEI like principles only by hiring too many whites? Like, what if you're trying to overcorrect and they're like, you're not hiring any whites? It's like this isn't about trying to eliminate whites. You've admitted that, right?
But like I said, that's where it comes to like what do we think it is? If you think it's just about like picking someone who's unqualified to do a job, like random nobody off the street, like then
What do you
like,
mean
I
by
understand where you-
unqualified?
I think you guys have a good point in like lower end hiring, but as you get higher up, especially in these companies, and we're talking about like financial duties, and maybe Lactoid knows more about this. I don't really know
I have
a
an
ton about this, but
example.
generally you have like a financial duty to like your board has a financial duty to this company. They can't just like hire a guy because they like him. They have to know that like this is the best financial decision. If they hired some guy just because they liked him and then the company stake, they could get sued by their shareholders for not honoring that fiduciary
but that's still
financial
what
duty.
happens.
Nepotism.
Right?
When did nepotism
Well, no,
stop
it
existing?
happens
all the
The
time.
Did nepotism
examples you're
stop
giving,
existing?
the examples you're
And-
giving
but-
are like
and those
lower down the
people do
chain
those
where it's
jobs
not
good,
like
well.
that clear major
you're hiring
decision.
for Harding.
Sure, because the person you're hiring,
Pentuple is right. Listen to Pentuple.
The person you're hiring, even
Shut
those
up and listen to
hiring
Pentuple.
positions,
He's right.
The person you're hiring, even those hiring positions, the people who are who you find as eligible, quote unquote, candidates. All of the well, not all, but generally, you're picking from a pool of people who could more or less do the job well, even. Like it's not like, oh, this is going to be a bad decision.
Like, you're not getting the interview. You're not getting the interview. You're not getting your resume looked at if it's not qualified, right? Like,
yeah.
What do you mean by wait? What does that mean?
Sorry, all right, but before
I
we,
want to deal with that, but yeah, we can.
Before we do that, it's got to go.
Yeah,
Corey.
big
Yeah, Corey's next. And Gibbs, you're already on the list.
All right, man.
I'll attempt to at least maybe somewhat provide an answer to the question you posed, Pentuple, in your opening statement, which it's like a difficult thing to answer. So, well, when affirmative action was essentially like abolished, is largely in favor of that, and it's hard to know exactly when, an initiative or a policy like should end. But I can sort of imagine or somewhat hypothesize that probably like in the next few decades, at least by my estimation, I have no real fundamental basis for making the claim of like, yeah, probably 20, 30 years. Hopefully we're at a place that DEI initiatives are no longer necessary. But also at the same time, to like throw back to you of like, so then are you in favor of eliminating SNAP tomorrow? And if not, when? And if you want to maintain it, is that a reflection of the system not working?
Food stamps.
SNAP welfare? Food stamps? I mean, I wouldn't end it tomorrow. I
This
wouldn't
guy's so
wanna
rich,
make
you didn't even know what that
decision.
is.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I knew it was like food stamps or something, but I'm not like super familiar with SNAP to be like, oh, I'd end that tomorrow. I'd be like fucking sweating the night if I made a fucking mistake.
Yeah, okay, so then on that note, then when would you want to end it, or would you never end it? And if you would never end it, is that a reflection of your society not working?
Well, if I was going to argue like, oh, we always have to do this, I would probably say then we're kind of probably in other realms of society accepting defeat on some level. I don't know. Hopefully we don't always need it, but maybe we always need it. I don't think that like always needing SNAP would convince me that our society's broken. But if you were to convince me that we're going to always need DEI forever, it does suggest to me that it's like you're suggesting this isn't manageable. It's not possible to have a multiracial
Why could you
society.
make the same thing about food allocation?
Well, Corey, you're saying food allocation isn't like as serious. I don't think. I mean, like
what?
I mean, I have the interest of getting people food. Like, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, do you think society is broken right now because it exists? I don't know that society is even broken right now because we have DEI.
Well, depends what you mean by broken. That's a loaded question, but I understand your point.
Well, it's just like I don't campaign against SNAP personally, so like I don't have like a super strong feeling on it. I mean, generally, I don't want welfare growing, but I don't think welfare would ever be zero. So I mean, like I don't know that it's a 1-to-1 comparison for me. But generally, the point is like, if you don't think we'll ever be able to live in a society where people can like just self-govern without being racist at that degree and like affecting the livelihoods of their fellow citizen like that, it's like, well, what's the best form of governance, do you think? Do you think that like we should do that, or should we segregate? Like that sounds like someone who would want to segregate to me, and I'm not convinced on that. I think we could probably do it, but it's just like, it's who knows? I mean, it's like
segregation
we're
is
babies
part
in
of
this
DEI,
world.
just for the record.
Huh?
Okay.
That's what Grim was.
I just want.
He was like, "You're making people be around each other."
No, sorry, we got a little bit of list here, friend.
All right.
So Oh, sorry, Corey. Do you have any more? Please?
That's okay. Go on.
Okay. Pentuple, you were on the list. Previously. Do you have anything else to add? If not, we'll go to Ali.
It's actually it was, I think, at Ali. I think he mentioned it because or maybe it was Bam. I'm not sure, but someone brought up nepotism, and I think about this a lot because nepotism makes sense in government, and it makes sense maybe like I think in like sports because of government money going into their industry. But like if you owned a business, right? Is it nepotism if you're giving it to your son to take on the family business? Like, at what point is it like, is that not just like the obvious thing to do? Why would you give it to someone else instead of your son? You know, like, especially when you're talking about DEI, if he's qualified. Well, right. That's what I say. That goes to the merit argument. But if you're not making the merit argument, wouldn't you be like, oh, well, nepotism's like, of course I'm going to give my son the business. Like, I built this business for me. Like, I built this business because, like, why wouldn't you pass it to your son? Why would you give it to some random other guy's family and let him fucking benefit from it?
So this is where I was going to answer. This is where I was going to answer Lactoid's question. So Lactoid kept saying like qualified. What does qualified mean?
I asked what does it mean?
To me, like
he pointed out it wasn't a binary. That was a good point. I thought.
I think it can be. I think like all qualified means is that you've like accomplished a level of learning or training needed to even apply for the job.
So you do treat it as a binary, though.
What do you mean? Like
you don't care? Say 6 and above to 10 is qualified. You're like 7 or 9. I don't really care. I'll hire him. It doesn't matter. It's like as long as you're in this pool, then you're qualified and you're hired. Lactoid saying, if I have a choice between the 9 and the 7, I want to take the 9 every time I'm
and that's nice, but that's not how the world works. The world doesn't work where you're always going to have a choice between a 9 and a 7. Sometimes you're just going to have a pool of 7s because depending on where your area is, depending where your hiring pool is, depending on what your hiring competition is. You guys are lawyers, right? Both of you are lawyers, and depending on your skill level, depending on how well you learn, how well you can apply your training, you can get a better job, right? But if you have a practice and you work in like the middle of nowhere, Indiana, right? Your pool of people that you're going to hire from isn't going to be 9s, and you're like, oh well, I'm only going to hire based on merit. Well, no,
sure.
Right? So you can, go ahead.
What you're doing is you're letting the perfect become an enemy of the good, right? I think you're correct in that you're always going to have these other factors that are in place, even in situations where there's fiduciary duty, even in there's situations where you're looking for merit. But acknowledging that these other things might come up and these internal biases might come up is not an excuse to say, well, the whole system sucks anyway. Let's introduce this whole new metric that has nothing to do with merit as well. Let's just start basing it off that because, we don't care about merit to begin with. When no, actually, like you should be shooting to hire the person who's a 9 over the person who's a 7. And perhaps you run into a situation where, unfortunately, the 7 is like a better talker. There's maybe financial reasons at play, like in terms of where they live or what the kind of pay they're going to accept, et cetera, right? All things that could go into that, right? But like those are things that you're trying to minimize when you're trying to hire the best person for the job. I just don't see how it makes the situation better to say, oh, let's also like, instead of just since we don't, since we have these issues with merit anyway, let's just like, if they're above a 5, just prioritize the ones.
I can tell you why, because there's plenty of times. There's plenty of times where you hire people based on merit, and they don't fit in. They don't fit into the culture of the company that you're working. So you hire the perfect person on paper. They come into work. Everyone fucking hates them, or they disagree with it, or they get along with everyone. But they had the best credentials. But now the work suffers, right? Versus what Bam versus the type
highest merit.
Right,
I mean,
because to merit.
So this is the real problem.
If I can finish my statement real quick. So what Bam was saying is that it's not so much that DEI should be implemented in that like, no, you have to hire 6 Muslims, 5 black people, 8 Asian. Like that's not how it's meant to be implemented. But if you have you should open the pool to a more diverse candidacy in the pool of people that you're interviewing, because it's not always what's on paper that so like if you have a bunch of candidates and they all have 3.9 GPAs and they're all like white, and you never look at any of the candidates below a 3.9 GPA, right? It's like you might have better fits for your company. But if you're looking at a specific like merit that's only on paper, that you're only looking through a resume, right? Your candidacy pool for applicants isn't open, who you're interviewing isn't open. You're only looking at merit at that point, then you might not have a good fit for your company.
No, so this is so what merit actually means. What merit actually means is that
we got a whole list, friend. But don't worry.
I'll come back to it because nobody here is really getting the how merit works and how.
Okay, sure. So first of all, Ali, do you have anything else to say? Then we'll go
No,
down to
that was
Lactoid, Gibbs, Grid, and then me, and then Scott, I guess.
No, I got my point off. We're good.
Okay.
Unless someone wants to respond to that, but I don't think you're trying to do that.
Am I next?
Yes, Ali.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll just respond to that then.
Cool.
So when merit, I guess, is a sort of it's a hard to define term, but essentially merit is just how well you do in a particular job, how well you do in a particular role, and how well you get along with other people to enhance group cohesion. Absolutely is part of your merit. If you get along better with people, that can be a measure of merit, as opposed to if you're constantly fighting with people and causing disruption in the workplace and not optimizing the workplace for efficient production. The problem with the statement of like, well, if you look below 3.9s and you could find some people who are better fits for the workplace, that could be true. But I would expect that you would look for metrics that would indicate somebody's a better fit for the workplace, such as some kind of like experiential background, some kind of like, personality test, et cetera, as opposed to, well, we're going to be giving advantages based on like race and gender, unless there is some reason to believe that race and gender is actually relevant to the merit of the job. And that is the case sometimes, right?
Well,
so, for example, when it comes to the military, I would expect gender to be relevant there, or becoming a firefighter, or becoming something along those lines. Now, you could say, well, we could just cut it off at like a particular like fitness level, and that could be an argument. You can have this, but the lost income on just simply like attempting to give women a shot for the SEALs could be less advantageous than just saying, no, you have to be a man to even try out for the SEALs. That could be the case. It also could be the case where if you're in a black area, like a black barbershop or something along those lines, there could be a customer base that just doesn't want to visit a place that has white workers. That could be the case. You could also have vice versa. And that's when it becomes kind of a sticky situation where you have, because of consumer preference, a crossover between what's technically a merit in like a capitalist sense and what I think you guys would describe as discrimination, that you guys would hate. And I also have a problem with that. But it seems like my problem with that is both ways. While a lot of people who advocate for DEI, they seem to only have a problem with it one way, where it's like they like the idea of saying, well, kind of like, I want to bring on people who are kind of similar to me, who have similar upbringing, maybe can relate to similar things, right? And that's fine, I guess, for minorities to say that in the racial context. But if a white person says that, like, that is not accepted in the same way. And if we're going to have that standard for private enterprise, you could do that, but I want to have some kind of consistent standard.
So I'm gonna keep going. And Blacktoid, if those white workers at that barbershop are white women, then those black men will absolutely show up. It's not a problem. But thanks so much, Ben.
Good point. I hadn't thought about that, but
you hadn't thought about that, of course. Let's go to our friend Gibbs. Grid.
Let's make a post-apocalyptic.
I gotta be honest. I don't give a good goddamn about a lot of what people on both sides are saying. Y'all are all full of shit, except for Fabian, who I know is an ideologue, right? The rest of y'all are all full of shit. Let me tell you why. First of all, I'm sitting here listening. We know the shit's a fleece. We know the DEI grants. I would love for Doge to go in there and take a gander at where some of these grants and tax cuts and benefits are going to and who they're going to. I would like to see that. Doge, if you're listening, make that happen. Secondly, when I turn around and I see that my tax dollars are being given away to these programs, I get real pissed off. Third, when I get here and I hear all this bullshit about merit and nepotism and, what was the other, raises, you know what I have to say about that? I don't give two fucks. Let me tell you why. It's real simple. I should be able to, as a business owner, hire anybody for any goddamn reason I want to hire them for. If I want to give it to my son, since I own the business, guess what? Crimey River, if Bob has worked there 60 years and is way more merit-based, guess what, Bob? You ain't family. Sucks to suck. All right? Like, I don't give a shit. Sorry. Sucks. Like, go on, get then. Yeah, like, as a business owner, go fuck yourself. This is my business. I can run this the way I want to, and for any goddamn reason. So, guess what? Maybe Bob's a member of the Ku Klux Klan. He wants to only hire his Klansmen. Guess what? Let him do it. If you're a member of the Black Panthers and you want to hire only Black Panthers, let him do it. Now, I do think part of a business is being successful enough as a business that you continue to be staying open. And maybe to me, probably those businesses that are exclusive in that manner are probably not going to stay open, is my wager. Guess what? Let the free market decide it. Cool, whatever. We don't need, it's not my job to even give a fuck about it, because I don't give a fuck. I'll let all of them. You know, Al-Qaeda wants to open up a coffee shop, let them. I don't give a fuck. I'm done. It's fucking crazy that we're sitting here arguing about merit and whatever. I, as a business owner, who is the government to tell me what I should be able to do? And then why are my tax dollars going to fund this bullshit? It's bullshit, and I'm sick of it, and I'm tired of pretending I'm not. And all y'all are sitting here giving all these metaphysical reasons. Just be honest. Say it's bullshit. Just say it's bullshit. And guess what? They will eventually have to recognize that we're sick of it. And, you know, instead of sitting here making arguments for them. It's terrible. I don't know.
Can I just give like 2 sentences to give? I'm about to say, so his point doesn't get.
Sure.
Yeah, like I think if I agree with you on for small businesses. I don't care who works in your local salon. I don't, like if you don't want men.
Doesn't matter the size.
But I think that when you're dealing with like we're dealing with companies that make millions to billions of dollars, like. I think
like any of the Rothstein-owned banks, who gives a shit? Let them pass it on the Rothstein 52nd the third. Who gives a fuck? Like,
again, I mean, you're just talking about this one person, the CEO. I don't care about.
What about the Rockefellers? I mean, just pick your guy. The Hiltons.
You're saying who gets passed on the business. That's what I'm talking about.
Doesn't matter. They own
these publicly companies or like who you're bringing on as employees. If you're participating in a city,
don't invest in that company if you don't like how they're going to pass it on. Like, sorry, don't care.
I just think that there's a difference, and I think that if not caring, I think that not caring, this is gonna be the most woke liberal cuck thing I ever said. But I think not caring is a problem.
Clip it now.
We'll continue on. I agree with Gibbs. Like Al-Qaeda should be able to open up a coffee shop next to the Pentagon. I don't
that
see
place would be.
We're working on it next week.
Yeah. The bomb. I actually I went through DC on my way to Tim Pool's spot. And I saw the Pentagon for the very first time. Oh my god, so huge! Like I had never seen the Pentagon. This is my first time.
China's building a bigger one, much bigger one.
Egypt is building a bigger building. That's like a whole different story. Like seriously, look into that. Like Egypt, their military command with their tiny ass army is building a bigger building than the Pentagon.
I think China's is supposed to be like
do
5
that. They
times
just
bigger
need to dig under the pyramids.
See what's going on there.
And they'll unlock the ancient army that was waiting for them. Let's go to our friend Grid. Oh, okay. No problem. So I guess I'll go instead, and then we can get Grid afterwards. And we got Scott. All right. So that's a lot of stuff to respond to. I'll try to do my best. Okay, you can go. Please go ahead.
Give me just 1 second to kind of reorient myself. Sorry, I had a phone. My wife calls, and I always answer my wife when she calls.
Probably wise.
Right. So it's interesting. It's either everything is a total meritocracy or it has to be DEI. And that's total bullshit. And everyone here knows it. Right. The reality is that if I have 2 or 3 different candidates in front of me, I'm going to pick the one that meets the desired requirements for the job, can physically do the job, and who doesn't seem like an asshole that's going to torpedo my business. I've been wrong before. I've had to fire people. I fired a lot of people. I've hired a bunch of people. I've fired a lot of people. But as someone that sat across the table and hired a bunch of people, DEI is not even on my list of things I look for. I don't care. Now it's interesting. It's interesting that we talk about a lot of different things, like some people might be disadvantaged. Well, we have Equal Opportunities Act. Okay. We have the American with Disabilities Act. You can't hire someone you can't not hire someone based on a disability in most cases. There's enough legal protections that all DEI is a feel-good, ball-scratching bunch of nonsense. It's just to make you feel good. Nothing else. Zero else. Also, they attached money to it. Programs to lure companies into going through these processes. And that's bullshit as well. Now, I really got to address this meritocracy. Earlier today, I walked into my wife's home office, and she was in a meeting with a couple of dudes, and they were talking about. They're actually. My wife is looking at new positions. She's probably going to move, change to a different company. And they were actually talking about DEI, and it was unfair because my wife will get hired over the two men because she's an Asian female. You can't not hire the Asian female and instead hire the two Asian males, right? Like that's
what they said on the interview. They said, "Sorry, we would like you, but we have to hire the Asian female."
They probably would, yeah. Well, these were three people in corporate America talking about their chances to get hired. It's an actual legit conversation I overheard today from my wife and two of her friends. All of them were Asian, by the way. But it was interesting that and I told her, I was like, "Hey, I'm debating DEI tonight," and she's like, "Get out of my office. I'm busy. I got things to do." But because it's very interesting, all of this nonsense from the opposition here tonight. You can't tell me one good thing DEI has done, not one, and you can't tell me why it is not meant to be devices, not inclusive, and worse, it's meant to make companies do things they would not ordinarily do. Gibbs is right. It's his decision. It's his company. Pass, fail. He should do that. There should be no reward for hiring people he would not ordinarily hire. It shouldn't exist.
Real quick, we'll just add one sentence there. Just one sentence to that. I would like to and I'll be done. I was going to say, if these things were working, they wouldn't still need taxpayer dollars to fund these businesses. These businesses would already be profitable. If they need taxpayer dollars to stay afloat, that just goes to show that DEI is not working. In Fred.
Okay, all right, so I'll have to deal with that in a second. I got to add it to the long list of things to talk about. Okay, getting government money means business should fail. Okay, all right. That's
the military failing.
No. If they use government money to stay afloat because they can't otherwise stay afloat and they get it because DEI hires, then it should fail.
Okay,
because it's clearly not a successful business.
You should be looking at Tesla. With
all the terrorism or what?
Terrorism.
You should be looking at the government.
It is terrorism.
You should be looking at
the government. Terrorism.
We should be looking at the government subsidies that Tesla gets, right, for the bullshit carbon credits.
Wait, when you blow up a McDonald's like in another country to protest America, is that
or
not
General
terrorism?
Mills with the snap?
Is that not terrorism?
I thought you were pro blowing up McDonald's. What do you care?
Hey,
is it terrorism?
Excuse me.
No.
Excuse me. Hey, shut up. Hey, when I say shut up, that doesn't mean you make another comment, right? That's the Ali, that's the Gibbs. Shut up. Thank you. We're not gonna get distracted by this. Moving on. So holy fuck. We got a I'll have to respond to here. Okay, so disparate impact. Our friend Scott had said that previously, right? Talking about stats. I'm going to be responding to a lot of people. If you got something to say to me, please write it down, and then hit me back later on. We talk about the disparate impact stats. So to the audience, I sent these fine individuals a clip, right, of a show of the Nick Wright show. I never heard of him, but he made a point about like what DEI is from the left, and he talked about how looking at the history of our elected representatives, it showed that we have like centuries of like white, and then we got a little bit of black, and then no white, no black again, and then now in this era we got more black individuals within those programs, and then he also talked about like the Fortune 500 companies, or at least the top CEOs, and like what like the demographics of that. And it was always white until like just very, very recently, we got some a bit of color within them, and now it's it's DEI. So like what those disparate impact stats like perfectly exemplify like why equity is like a good thing. Absolutely. Right. Like I think the point that was made within that video, simply stating that like it's like completely, unless you're going to make the point that before we started trying to redress these issues, right? And I'm going to use a very, very broad definition of DEI. I don't really care about the Marxist, neo-Marxist radical thing, like whatever. I don't know.
Correct one. Got it.
I've not read it, and again, that's not when people are having these conversations. That's not what they're referring to. They're not referring to those definitions.
And all those names are in your head, Prime, circling
Hey,
around.
all those names in my head, I just like refuse. Like I'm like I know I'm going to sabotage.
Refuse to acknowledge them.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know them. I don't know who these people are. I literally don't know.
Right.
I know the Kimberly person. But other than that, I don't know any of those other names. But in any case,
people do not have ideas. Ideas have people, right? Like you're talking about that philosophy.
Just let Prime get through.
Hold on.
Know it or
yes,
not.
Prime.
No, hold on. To be clear, I don't have any sort of allegiance to any particular policy that like you would classify as DEI. I actually don't. I'm just looking for an effective way to address these inequities, because these inequities exist. They absolutely do exist, and I'm going to address them. If you don't care about addressing them, then make that point. Then that's not an issue, and then we can argue on that, right? But I don't necessarily care about like this particular policy or that particular policy. However we do it, right, as long as we're doing it effectively, that's what matters to me. Anyway, disparate impact stats. Yeah, like looking at like the CEOs, right, like of these companies, was it really for like decades upon decades upon decades that the only qualified people were white individuals, usually white males? Was that really the case, right? And now that that's changing, that's the aberration, or was it what it was before? Like that seems crazy, right? To say that the meritocracy, well, that was working previously, right? And it just so happened to be, people that looked like you. Oh wow, that just happened to all be the ones most qualified. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. But if you want to make that argument, then make that argument, and then we can engage with it. But I don't think you will. And then this is to Corey. Okay, great, fantastic. Hold on. It's not good. First of all, I'm not. Oh, actually, I was talking to you. No, that time I was talking to you. Fair enough. But that last part was actually to everybody. In terms of so, Corey, Meta and Google never cared about DEI, right? I agree with Scott there. Scott replied, I think, at some point, on that. This was, and I actually really agreed with the way he actually framed it. That it was, rainbow capitalism. They thought they would have some sort of advantage for it, that the culture was moving in that direction. Nike with its deal with Colin Kaepernick, right? Remember that? Because they thought like there was an advantage to it. And to some extent, we call it pandering, right? Which I think it's fair to say those words. But to a certain extent, that like just makes sense, like to like, do things that your customer base will like the thing that is happening with that I don't know, Steak and Shake, I think it is, right? The ones that RFKing their French fries with beef tallow. That makes sense. If that's their customer base is like super conservative, right? Then do that. Like you should provide things that your customer base will like, that will attract them, they'll get them into the door. Then that makes sense, right? But that's all that it was in terms of their allegiances, because the people who were in charge, well, first of all, most of them are white. They don't really give a fuck about any of this, but they saw profits, and so they took advantage of that. And I also agree. I was actually going to agree with something else about Scott said, but if it's something that I agree with Scott, then that's something I can forget. Then never mind, we can move past that part. But if I
repeat it anyway, don't worry. Just
yeah, I'm sure he will. He's going to repeat it. But hopefully I can remember what that last point. Anyway, in terms of affirmative action, I think our friend Grid brought this up. I think affirmative action, specifically, if that's what you're talking about, wasn't very effective. I don't think it was very effective at redressing the issues. If we're talking about like, in terms of education, right? Well, redressing imbalances at the college level is actually like the most ineffective way of handling this. So, like I said before, I have no allegiances to any particular DEI program, right? If you tell me a frame of action isn't effective, and I've been convinced of that in terms of like where we should be putting our dollars, then I agree with you that like if it's the case that there's some sort of education gap, right? Well, then by the time people are going to college, right? Like that's like the worst time to try to close that gap somehow. Instead, though, we could do things that are far more effective. And that would involve massively investing in our schools, but also be massively investing in neighborhoods. Because what's happened here, right, is that schools, oh, now I remember what my thing with Scott was, is that schools have become like the base of neighborhoods, right, have like taken on more and more services for impoverished communities that are a disadvantage and not invested in. And they have taken on those roles. This is what the thing I was going to agree with Scott, talking about why DEI was so easily onboarded by the capital class. Because, like Scott said, they had to give up nothing. There was no structural change involved, right? And so it's like literally the easiest bone to give out to people, right? It's like the woke nonsense you're talking about. Yeah, I can agree with you there. So what I'm looking for is actual structural change, actually changing how we fund our schools, for instance. That'd be a big change. Actually changing maybe how do we redistribute children into those schools? That'd be a big change. But like,
I'm sorry, did you say redistribute children?
Yeah. Like,
are you talking about busing?
I'm talking about busing. I'm absolutely talking about school busing. School busing, in that period of time was when the achievement gap between white and black individuals shrunk the lowest, and that's simply because
welcome to the
absolutely
welcome to the world, man.
Hold on. I don't know how this is a far right idea, but you can explain it to me later. But like the reason why is because when the left talks about investing in schools, right, we usually don't actually get that. But when we put white kids in black schools and then white parents saw how those schools were falling apart, all of a sudden the resources flowed in. The resources that we never actually get, they actually happen. And it was a massive boon to those communities on both sides. So yes, actually that's helpful because segregation by housing is one of the best ways to deny a group investments. And so when you broke that down in terms of schooling, that made a huge difference. Okay, next thing. You again to grid. I have a few things I say to grid, and of course you can respond to me later on. We talked about hostility, right? Hostility and putting people together from different groups. Well, I mean, we do that all the time. Like the military, right? Does that create hostility by putting different groups together?
That's not an employer.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. The military is absolutely an employer. People absolutely leave high school.
So the government's a business when you want it to be, but it's not when
I
you don't want it to be. Interesting. We don't want to run like a business, except when it is a business.
I'm ignoring you, Gibbs. Okay.
I would ignore me too because that's called
whatever.
Double
it's
standard.
Absolutely employer. It absolutely provides a paycheck. People absolutely leave high school. They don't have many other opportunities, and then so instead they go into the military. For a job, for dignity, for training, all those things. Yes, the military and the government in general is the biggest employer. Of course it is. That's a ridiculous question.
Except you
anyway,
get the military.
So does it create hostility?
I mean, Walmart is, but yeah.
No, I mean the okay. You mean private employer? It's the biggest private employer. Walmart.
What Chick-fil-A?
So it's a public business employer. I see.
Yeah,
interesting.
It literally means nothing. Okay, moving on. Right?
Oh yeah, it's quite a bit.
Anyway, so we can. So just because we force these people together and there's some sort of level of friction, like that's not a reason to not do it. Like I think who cares? But it's better because like we can see the cohesion. We can see the advantages of having a unified force within our military, and I think we can apply that in other places. But moving on, DEI again to grid.
So we're going to start sending corporate people to basic training. That would be great. I would love that.
Also,
okay, all right.
I hate to do this, Brian, but I got to roll out. I gotta dip out. I'm sorry. I hate to do it early. I don't know how long we go, but
11:30. That's what I put in the message.
Oh, okay. I can't. I don't usually go past 11 because of my work. but I appreciate you having me.
Okay.
That's
All
my
right.
bad.
See you later.
Sorry.
Yeah. All right.
Take care. Be well. Read carefully next time.
Yeah.
Sorry.
All right. So so you're talking about DEI policies, right? Like what could that be? Here's an idea. So you talked about like how you hire and fire people, right? Here's an idea of a DEI policy. Why not simply advertise in a place that you usually wouldn't, right? Let's say, right, because you're a huge country music fan, that the place that you usually advertise, you create radio advertisement, you put it on the country music radio station, right? And you get a certain group of individuals show up at your door. Well, if you put it in a different radio station, right, a hip hop radio station, or like whatever, like a Latin music radio station, you get a different class of people. That would be a DEI policy. It wouldn't say that, hey, you have to hire a black person. It wouldn't say that you have to hire
How is that
a
a
Latin
DEI
person
policy?
or whatever, right? It would say, hey, you would actually just kind of stretch out. Hey, let's see if we can attract, people from a different community, and then we can see if they're qualified, of course, right? Whatever that means within your parameters. But that'd be it, right? That's as thin as it can be, which is why the next point is I agree with Bam. Bam is right that everyone has clearly a different idea what DEI does. Clearly, right? You guys said like, oh, we agree. I agree with Scott. I agree with what Lactoid said, right? But clearly you have different ideas as to what that could actually be. So moving on. Oh yeah, to Lactoid, the diversity statements are bad, right? Those things, as you describe them. Those are bad things, and I don't necessarily support that. But that's exactly what you would get from a very neoliberal idea of like how to create equity. And I think that's what we see through our current definition of DEI policies. All right. And two more points, and then I'm done. Lactoid, who says, oh yeah, you implied that we don't care about merit, right? The DEI means that we don't care about merit. Well, I agree with what something that Grid said, that of course these things aren't mutually exclusive, DEI and merit. That's crazy. Why would you even think that? Like simply putting in place policies in which you can expand the pool of individuals that can come in to your come into every interview for the job, right? Doesn't mean that you don't care about merit. Simply like taking a second look at individuals from these groups that normally don't have access to these circles, right? Don't have inroads, maybe through friendships, right? Like Scott, and so like you hire Scott just because you happen to know him, but you don't know me, and so you don't recommend me for the job. Like that, things like that. You want to create inroads for people. That doesn't mean that you don't care about merit. That's extremely disingenuous to say that about people who support these policies. There was something else I forgot to. And then, oh yeah, I already addressed this with Gibbs. Getting government money doesn't mean a business should fucking or fail or whatever it was. You said.
Well, if it's not profitable without government money. That's proof of a bad business plan.
There's lots of businesses. Okay, then I can agree. I agree that we should let a lot of farms fail because there are a lot of farms that get government money to
well, we didn't have the regulation; those farms wouldn't fail in the first place. So.
We should let farmers fail. We should let Tesla fail. Tesla's getting a ton of fucking money, subsidized money. We should get the oil industry. It wouldn't fail, but at the very least, we should let.
What would happen to the oil industry?
Oil be find its watermark in the market, right? Like gas should be a lot.
Yeah, but why would you want the oil industry to get any taxpayer dollars? Let's examine that. Let's examine that.
Okay. I'm literally agreeing with you. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you here, right?
Airlines, banks,
converted them.
All right, so I'll. There was something else I forgot there, but that's enough. Scott, and then anyone else like to all of them? Yeah.
Yeah, so there's a lot that's been said, right? So
yeah,
just to add some context to the merit, right? Like Lactoid, you have the half of it, right? The part of your critique that is missing is the diversity, equity, inclusion part, right? So it's absolutely true that that many people have brought up as like a DEI is good because meritocracy is a myth. And you're absolutely right. Pure meritocracy is a myth, especially if you're talking about only technical and experiential expertise. It's absolutely true that most people get jobs based upon who they know or from word of mouth. These things are true. And so Lactoid very astutely was like, well, that doesn't mean we add more anti-meritocratic shit to it. That's part of it. But what's really important to understand is that what DEI is attempting to do is it's attempting to centrally plan cultural changes in a company. It is via tax dollars, via NGOs, via equity firms that are utilizing these tax dollars, right? Like I can send you guys the World Economic Forum's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Lighthouses of 2024, right? Where what they are doing is they're trying to highlight companies and their DEI policies and push these things so that these companies get more investment and things of that nature. So it is this incestuous relationship between activist organizations, NGOs, and the state that are pushing things that the market isn't asking for, but that activists and people that are putting political power, in places are asking for. It is about the party trying to centrally plan the economy so that we can have stakeholder capitalism as opposed to shareholder capitalism, right? It is trying to interject additional socialism into the market and have the market, be in a kind of a Marcusian sense, as it becomes more and more democratically controlled. Next, I do find it interesting that like everyone's talking about like how many senators there are. This is kind of more of a quip than anything, but the House is 14% black, which is about 1.5% overrepresentation. So do we need DEI programs to make sure
it's not in the House of
people,
Representatives.
Yeah, it's not.
Do we need but do we need DEI programs to make sure more white people get elected or more Asians, and we make sure that we're not electing too many black people? I don't think people would make that argument because that'd be a silly argument, but it does showcase that DEI is about whiteness. It is about balancing racial power as seen from whiteness as a problem. And this is why I get so frustrated when people constantly want to decouple policies from their philosophical roots. You begin to be confused, when you look at it in practice because you don't understand the origins. The next thing I want to talk about is inclusivity. It's important to recognize that when you're trying to,
I think we do agree that and I don't want to put words in Bam's mouth, so I'll speak for myself. But I agree. Of course, it's about whiteness. It's about white supremacy. Is what we're addressing. White supremacy is simply another way to provides another way to redistribute funds, right, and goods and services. It would distribute it to one group. But addressing this required some sort of response. Now, it doesn't have to be the DEI as we've currently imagined it. That's fair. Like I said, I don't have any loyalty to any particular policy. But there should be some way of redressing it and not assuming that we can just move on, stop those old practices, and simply move on and things will naturally get better, because they just don't.
Yeah, I was about to say, as a black person, I can only speak for black people. I just don't want black people for years.
You can't speak for black people. That's fucking racist.
Okay, so I'm saying black people
that aren't
or
like,
don't
go fuck yourself.
Okay, I'm still.
I don't speak for white people.
Sure, I'm speaking for black people when I say that. Like, I believe black people are like we've been trying for.
They agree with you.
Yes, they do. They've been trying for decades and centuries to get removed from perpetually being at the bottom. I won't deny that. We're trying, like, we're seeking our government that seems to have our United States seems to have a value towards multiculturalism, and we continue to be, and we have a history of being passed over and minimized. And yes, we're seeking for not necessarily redress, even though we are seeking redress, but we're just looking for ways to not be at the bottom. Yes, that is something.
Right, you speaking on behalf of all black people.
Yes,
are stating that black people, which now must be a monolith.
Yes.
Which is, of course, part of the diversity, as I explained in my intro, of DEI, which is this concept. You're not actually.
I speak for all Hispanics. Just to be clear, all Hispanics, all origins now.
Right. Right. Like that. You're not actually speaking for those people. Like, you're not actually.
This is not
diversity.
the guy you think it is.
It is. It's just that you don't
You
read
think
the
you speak for
philosophy of it.
black people are, we're not all
You don't
monolithic,
speak for
but
black
we
people,
by and large.
but you're proving my point. You're proving my point that the
No,
push
you're
of
not proving
diversity
anything.
is not about a diversity of ideas and enjoying that people have different backgrounds, but rather that diversity means that the minorities that you select have the voice of the identity that you are speaking about. You are saying that black people are diverse so long as they agree with your critical theory, with your critical race theory.
No,
When they
I'm
begin
just
to push
say
off
that.
and
I'm
push
saying this
things
is
like
what by and
merit,
large.
so now you're willing to admit that it's a generalization.
I'm
and not.
sorry.
I'm
I'm
gonna
sorry.
continue
If you
with
don't know
my
if you
position.
didn't know that was a generalization, you shouldn't be a part of this conversation. That should be a bare minimum. You shouldn't be allowed to go outside by yourself if you didn't know that meant I meant generalization. I don't want to talk to someone in this conversation who didn't know that meant generalization. That's not valuable. You're not safe to be here.
You're
not
running
safe.
and
No,
ducking and now you're
Proclamation
looking for a dub.
generalization.
it's not
I'm
safe
not
for you to
safe
be on
here?
Twitch right now. No, yeah, you're not. You're not. It's not safe for you to be on Twitch if you
There we
don't know
go.
when someone's generalizing.
Why?
It's
Because
not
I'm
safe for
attacking
you.
your racist ideas
No,
and
I said
showcasing the
you're
philosophy
not
behind
safe.
them.
No, I'm saying that you're not safe. Someone
What do you
should
mean?
hold
Are
their
you
hand
threatening
when
me?
you go
What
to
do
the
you mean by
bathroom.
I'm not safe? What are you talking about?
I'm saying that you shouldn't be left alone if you don't know when someone's generalizing.
No, what I'm saying is that your generalizations are racist. Do I not? Is it only black people that get to call out racism? It's not
It's
white
not
people.
a gotcha. It's not the gotcha you think it is.
Okay, well, I don't have the gotchas. So
Right? You're
sit
not
down.
winning. You look dumb.
So shush, right? And I'll finish.
Please
Since
finish.
we can't we're speaking past each other in some degree, and I'll keep
Yeah.
informing people of the philosophy.
I
that
think
you
we
don't
should poll the
understand.
rest of the minorities in the chat.
Lastly,
You should have the cards.
I want to. Lastly, there's a part of DEI that's being ignored in this conversation that's really important, which is inclusivity, right? Most people are discussing equity and then like how diversity and inclusivity kind of attach themselves to equity, right? Because that's the easiest thing to see as a problem. But inclusivity is by its very nature censorious, and by its very nature requires purging of people that have the wrong opinions, right? So when we look at Daryl Sue in his microaggressions in everyday life, right? There's a conversation about, and you will see constantly in HR meetings, in these trainings about microaggressions, about popular behavior, etc. And these things even go outside of the domain of things that are racist. For example, master bedroom. We can't say that because that's racist. And why? But it's not racist, even though the term was invented in the 1920s, right? We see the same thing about like slave code and things of that nature. And the reason is because pushes for inclusivity require catering to the emotional needs of people that are hypersensitive to race because they are critically conscious. And the reason this is so dangerous, I'll give just one case study, and then you can kind of extrapolate why this is so dangerous. In the 1990s, Korean Air had a series of plane crashes, and the worst of which occurred in 1997, which was Air Flight 801. Somewhere between 228 and 254 people died in a plane crash in Guam. And Korean Air was ready to go out of business. They didn't know what to do. So what they did is they hired Delta Air to come in as a consultant to try and figure out what was going on. One of the things that they discovered is that communication breakdowns were at the key, or were a key issue in all, if not all, most of the plane crashes that they had. And so what they suggested is that they needed to stop speaking Korean. The Korean language, which is part of their culture, right? It would be offensive to get rid of it. Inclusivity would mean accepting them in these situations. But they recognized that English was better. And the reason English was better is because Korean requires you to be use honorifics and be very polite. And what they realized is that when you had co-pilots that were trying to say things, because they were communicating in Korean, they had to say like, hey, maybe it would be a good idea, sir, if you checked your altitude instead of screaming, pull up, pull up, pull up, we're going to crash, right? And so they forcibly changed and forced Korean Air pilots to speak in English because English is a better language than Korean in this instance because of the honorifics and the breakdown in communication that can occur in hierarchies. When you are pushing things like inclusivity, when you are saying that you cannot critique people, when microaggressions become a problem, what you are doing is you are grinding workplaces to a halt for fear of saying the wrong thing or offending people. And you can't have this, especially in jobs like pilots or civil engineering or things where mistakes can cost people lives.
Well
so
said.
you can respond if you want. Bam. Before I do that though, quickly. Okay, look. Oh, look. The super chat came in. I literally saw it come in, right? But someone else is speaking. I was like, okay, let me let this other person finish speaking, right? But then other things happen, and then look, any which way, $10 to Michael, Rich. Ruth Bader Ginsburg famously argued in Califano versus Goldfarb, never heard of this one, that men were unfairly discriminated against by the social security system. It was an early form of DEI, but for men. I've heard, I don't remember the case, but I've heard this like factoid about RBG. I'm guessing our friend Lactoid would be aware of this one.
I'm not aware of that case.
Just,
Yeah, I'm about to
it's
say,
not,
what
it's
would
not
be the reason behind it?
like this is the problem when we decouple DEI from the philosophy and we decouple DEI from actual DEI programs and name, and we start talking about DEI as anytime there's legal or corporate addresses.
I think this is
against
before
something.
DEI though. To be fair.
Right, exactly. That's clearly not DEI. It's not an
Okay.
example of DEI in any way, shape, or form. It's an example of a court case that showcases things that were on the books long before DEI, like equal opportunity and the constitutional amendments that occurred during the Civil War and the Civil Rights Act, that these things are not DEI. And trying to say that like they're the same is a way to sneak in all of the bullshit and evil that DEI is with all of the things that conservatives tend to like.
Scott, before you attribute to malice, right? Yeah, but you're attributing to malice what could simply be that like, and I've said this many times before. You've heard me say this, that when these ideas escape academia, right, and they get into the wild, right, they just kind of like dilute themselves.
Well, yeah, I said multiple times. I've said multiple times in this panel, right? And I even quoted it, Young once, right? People don't have ideas; ideas have people, right? And then I said before I answered that, attributing it to malice, I am attributing to malice the ideology and the way that it goes forward, not iCal Rich, which is why I said this is the problem when we decouple it from the philosophy that informs it, and when we decouple it from the programs themselves. When we start talking about DEI vaguely like this, that this is part of the perniciousness or perniciousness. Sorry, not necessarily iCal Rich. It right in his saying like, isn't this like a DEI thing? Yes, they're similar. They have similarities in a DEI.
Fair. Okay.
But nothing's DEI prior to like 20.
Let's go to a grid and then. Sorry, Lacto. You did want. Sorry, Lacto did want to go. Bam. Did you want to respond first quickly to Scott? Or then
I'll get back. I'll get more in the queue.
We'll go Lactoid Grid and then Gibbs. Sorry, friend, I didn't see your hand. They're super pale. And then
that's very pale.
Go to Bam.
I just for the record, I speak for all Hispanics.
Thank you.
I have a lot to say, but Grid, I mean, you seem to want to jump on a very specific point there. I just wanted to give you a little bit.
I actually have to go. I've got to get up earlier than normal in the morning. So as much as I dislike leaving because Prime said some things to me personally that I'd like to respond to. I don't have time.
You want to say something really quickly?
No,
go ahead. My wife
is literally like, we got to be up and can't be late.
Okay.
So, not that I have no problem making you angry, but I do not make my wife angry.
Fair enough.
So, at any rate, it's been a good time. Listen to Scott, and you'll go far. And the rest of everybody, have a great rest of your night. I got to get out of here. See you guys. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is it. I got to leave StreamYard somehow. Where's StreamYard at? There it is. StreamYard. Oh, there it is. I need to exit. There we go. All right, cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I do have to go. I'm not kidding about that. it's interesting. The whole discussion tonight was very interesting. I will cover it maybe Wednesday when I get back. You guys have a great rest of your night. I got to get out of here. I love you all. Wish that I'd seen a few more super chats come through, but I understand it's hard to do that when I can't read them. I'm working on getting somebody to be on screen while I'm doing the debates to grift properly. But it did actually go Smoking Spaceman pretty much how I thought it would. I didn't actually see Bam being so overtly racist, but the victim cards came out, and that was the end of that. I'm going to send you guys to Sarah's stream. They're debating if God exists, and which I have no interest in. You guys have a great rest of your night. I'll see you Wednesday evening for the debate with Average Debate Enjoyer. All right, guys, be cool. Wear glasses if you need them. Get off my